across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Coming up to 3 minutes past 6. Top of the morning to you, one and all. Happy Tuesday. A very big 4 hours to come. This is Morning Glory. And breaking news this morning, the chairman of the Conservative Party under pressure to resign over a joke post on X comparing Reform UK to Adolf Hitler's Nazi Party. It's a crisis that threatens to engulf the Conservative Party, having sparked huge anger among Reform UK supporters, with Nigel Farage said to be furious at the comparison. Meanwhile, the BBC in disarray over bias claims as the corporation's chairman says nothing to see here, as he refuses to back down in the Donald Trump censored speech row. And as Rachel prepares her accounts for the year in a hotly anticipated and widely feared budget, Sir Keir Starmer and David Lammy will likely escape the proposed mansion tax, whilst other wealth creators are taken to the cleaners. That's convenient, isn't it? Plus, the Chancellor prepares to wage war on savers to plug her self-inflicted black hole. Our budget preview continues today. And in today's Dolan's Dispatch, the Tory party chairman thinks that you're a Nazi if you're worried about open borders. He thinks you're a Nazi if you take the view that net zero makes no sense when China are building coal-fired power stations for fun. He thinks you're a Nazi if you're concerned about the highest tax burden since the Second World War. Well, I'll be delivering my unapologetic verdict on the increasingly deranged and in denial Tory party in a special Dolan's Dispatch at 9 a.m. with live reaction from a woman who left the Conservative Party many years ago, former Government Minister Anne Widdecombe. Also this morning, Brighton Council, right? We need a section on the show, Woke Watch. Here we go again. This is basically public officials that hate this country. They hate the country that they live in and over which they preside. Brighton Council cancels a Union Jack art exhibition for fear of causing offence. And what about that White Elephant rail project? Half of Britons now back the scrapping of HS2. Should we get rid and save a few bill? Let me know your thoughts. My focus for the next 4 hours is to get your opinions on the national television and radio airwaves. My phone number, let me just give you, presenters shouldn't give out their phone number. Here's my phone number, 0344 499 1000. Tommy's on the phones today. He's on great form. He's a very lively young man. He's got an unnatural energy and he's taking your calls. I just want your views on the radio and I want your texts. So text the word talk in your message to 87222. You can also send us a voice note. And as the saying goes, let's talk. Lovely stuff. I'm delighted with my dream team today. We've got Luke, who's directing our TV output. We're on the radio. We're proudly on the radio. The DNA of this brand is radio, which is the serious medium. But we're also on TV. This is a TV show. So if you want to watch us, head over to YouTube and search Talk and up we pop. And you'll see what a great job Luke is doing because you've got fantastic live footage. You've got me yelling and waving at the camera. And you've got, of course, a litany of big name people appearing on the show today. So that's our TV output. Daily Star, front page. Luke, arise, Sir Kevin. Luke Littler, the wonderful darts champion, has stepped up the Oki and backed the Stars campaign to give Kevin Sinfield a knighthood for his incredible charity work after rugby pal Rob Burrow was struck down with motor neurone disease. The Daily Express, pensioners in battle to keep homes warm. Many older people will struggle to heat their homes without help with the cost of living. Rachel Reeves has been warned. Frozen income tax thresholds expected in tomorrow's budget will lead to frozen homes as those already struggling with soaring energy costs are hammered with higher tax bills. Well, I've got two words for you, folks. Net zero. But shall we rephrase that? Not zero. Because I actually think any party that says we'll get rid of it will do very well at the next election. Why? Because it makes no sense. It pushes up the cost of your energy. Did you know that the wholesale cost of oil and gas has gone down this week? And what's happened to our bills? They've gone up. That's right. From January, an extra 0.2%. Ed Miliband said we would save 300 a year. Well, we're actually paying 300 more. The Daily Mail newspaper. Now Reeves hits prudent savers as she prepares £15 billion welfare splurge. Chancellor to slash the annual cash ISA from £20,000 to £12,000. They're after your savings. They don't even want you to put something away for a rainy day. But I better be careful, producer Christian, because if I criticise the government's economic policies, if I point out that unemployment is now higher by an order of magnitude, it was 4.2% in July of 2024, now 5%. If I point out that inflation is double the Bank of England's target, if I point out that borrowing costs are now higher than under Liz Truss after her mini budget, if I point out that growth is effectively zero and it's minus something if you go per head, if I do any of those things, it's terribly sexist. Because, of course, Rachel is Britain's first woman chancellor. We must, therefore, not criticise. The Times newspaper, Ukraine and US tear up peace proposal for new 19-point plan. The United States and Ukraine have drawn up a 19-point peace plan to replace previous proposals backed by President Trump, according to a member of the Ukrainian delegation. Is peace in the air? Did you get that whiff of peace? I think it might happen, folks. Bad orange man strikes again, ends the war in Gaza, closes the US southern border, improves the terms by which America trades with the world, and now potentially ends the war in Ukraine. I'll tell you why it matters to you and me, because we debate this, don't we, in the meetings before the show, and Christian and the team and myself, and we're like, look, do we talk about Ukraine this morning? It's very far away. Who cares? Yes, it's a tragedy, but does it really matter to my viewers and listeners? And the answer is it does, because when that war ends, there will be a massive boost to the global economy. The world economy will explode, and that means that the British economy, even under the watch of Rachel Reeves, will uptick. And then, of course, the cost of wholesale energy prices will plummet, which means that next winter, conceivably, we'll be able to heat our homes without fear of the cost. So that's why it matters. But is Donald about to deliver peace in Ukraine? Rachel Reeves tells Labour MPs to unite for her budget. Good luck with that. Rachel Reeves, has she been on the cooking sherry again? Rachel Reeves has insisted that she'll be Chancellor in 2 years' time. Oh, my goodness. Can I apologise at 10 minutes past 6? Because I'm supposed to cheer you up a bit. Because what we do on Morning Glory, we give you the news. Obviously, we drop a few truth bombs, but we try, don't we, Mark Gale, to keep it jolly and keep... And now I've just told you that Rachel Reeves wants to be Chancellor for years to come. Yikes! Be afraid, be very afraid. Anyhow, she's insisted that she'll be Chancellor in years to come as she hits out at misogyny in public life and urged Labour MPs to unite behind her tax-raising budget. The Chancellor pledged that she would not let her critics beat me and said that Labour needed to show voters that it deserved a second term in power. Can't believe I'm reading these words. But would only be able to do so if MPs stuck together. She said that leaks in the run-up to the budget had been incredibly destabilising. I don't think so. I want to thank the leakers, because what they've done is they've revealed the horrible plans that this government have in store for us. And I think that when she wants the party to unite around her, that's like getting all of the sailors on the Titanic to sort of agree that things are perfect on the good ship Titanic. Nuclear fish disco to save one salmon a year. More than £700 million is being spent at Hinkley Point C nuclear power station on environmental measures expected to save just 0.083 salmon and 0.028 sea trout per year. Folks, this country needs a revolution. Good news is it's coming. Daily Mirror, reforms Russia crisis. Any more Vlad apples, Nigel? Nigel Farage was last night facing mounting pressure to investigate pro-Putin links in reform. The party leader was urged to act after ex-colleague was jailed for taking £40,000 in Moscow bungs. One MP said the grubby saga shows that reforms Russia friendly. Mr Farage also tried to quash allegations of racism during his school days, saying he was never hurtful, and described his remarks as banter. The Daily Telegraph, BBC in disarray over bias claims. Starmer and Lammy escape mansion tax. Isn't that convenient? Isn't that lovely for them that they won't pay the mansion tax? Starmer doesn't like paying for things, doesn't pay for his glasses, does he, or his suits, even though he's a multi-millionaire, and now he will dodge Rachel's wealth creator attacking mansion tax. Guardian newspaper, victory for carers after inquiry into debt scandal, and Farage breaks silence on racism allegations. The Sun newspaper, Britain's best-selling newspaper, 16 years after Big Brother icon's death, Jade's Jeff in split heartache. Reality star Brazier parts from wife Kate. And the I newspaper, mansion tax will cause Labour a world of trouble in budget, warns top economist. Tax on most valuable properties would be a sticking plaster for the government and risks being mishandled, cautions former IFS chief Paul Johnson. That is a concern, because Paul Johnson is a big fat lefty, and even he's worried about Rachel's budget. And why wouldn't he be? He's got half a brain cell. What do you think, folks? Are you worried about the budget? What do you most fear? 0344 499 1000. What's going to happen to your life on a day-to-day basis as a result of tomorrow's budget statement? I want to know your fears. I want to know your worries. Share all of that with me on the text. 87222 0344 499 1000 and a voice note. I'm delighted to say with me in the studio reacting to the big stories of the day is former Met police detective and soon-to-be globe-trotting live performer with a massive show that's going on the road, Peter Bleksley. Good morning.
Good morning. And if I do nothing else today, may I do you one small favour, please?
Straighten my tie?
When you step up to the dartboard to throw those arrows, you step up to the ocky, not the okie, OK?
Oh, is that right?
OK, it's the ocky.
Yikes.
On the ocky, Mr. Mark Dolan.
Out of my depth there, I tell you. I'm no Ray Gubber. Do you remember Ray Gubber?
I do.
Icon of course, darts broadcasting. Up to the ocky. Well, you've stepped up to the ocky this morning, and it'll be 180 all morning with you, Peter. Always a thrill to have you. By the way, you're doing a massive national tour, aren't you?
I am, thank you. Yes, starting on the 8th of January. I'm going to about 140 theatres, length and breadth of the country, delivering my one-man show.
You're doing more gigs than Oasis.
Indeed, but earning considerably less.
Oh, listen, do check out Google Peter Bleksley live tour, and up will pop the availability of tickets, and it'll be a classic show because, my God, has Peter got a story to tell about his amazing life. And Peter, can we now talk about the big stories of the day? BBC in disarray over biased claims. The BBC chairman has told MPs that actually nothing to see here in regards to the Donald Trump doctored video. They're still sticking with that line that it was an oversight, it was an error, it was very unfortunate, rather than demonstrating a deep problem in the whole culture of the BBC.
To the huge irritation of my wife yesterday afternoon, I had the remote control, and expecting us fully to discuss this programme, I was watching Shah, the chair of the BBC, speaking to the parliamentary committee, and you know what? I thought he was a complete wet wipe.
Yeah.
At one point, he turned round when they're talking about the doctored Donald Trump speech.
Yeah.
And he was talking about a meeting that they had and how those that had doctored the speech were putting forward their point. He said there was an alternative view. What? An alternative view to a blatantly, astonishingly wrong piece of editing, a complete and utter false misrepresentation of the truth. There was an alternative view, and when I heard him say that, I thought, if those are the kind of people that are in charge, no wonder the BBC is firstly in disarray and becoming so incredibly unpopular.
They're in disarray, they're in denial, with parallels, by the way, with the Conservative Party, which is the topic of today's Dolan's dispatch. The great similarities are establishment regimes that just don't get it. Let's take a listen to the BBC chairman, Samir Shah, speaking to a parliamentary select committee yesterday on the issue of governance at the BBC.
And the crucial thing was, when I say odd problem here and there, every single thing we spotted, as per my memo, seemed to me to have systemic causes. And the root of my disagreement and slight concern even today is that the BBC was not, and I hope they will change, but will they, treating these as having systemic causes. There's real work that needs to be done at the BBC.
Now, of course, that was not Samir Shah. We will get you Samir Shah. That was Michael Prescott, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, who was responsible for the original leaked memo published by The Telegraph, highlighting the systemic bias within the BBC over trans rights, the rewriting of history of this country through a woke lens, and of course a pro-Gaza, pro-Hamas position in the coverage of that war, and much besides.
Yes, and there was some defence of the BBC by Mr Prescott in what he said yesterday in terms of their journalism. He did defend it to a certain degree,
yeah.
But of course it was him and that leaked memo revealing the doctoring of Donald Trump's speech, which caused this furore, which led to them being dragged in front of the parliamentary committee yesterday.
I'm just so angry about this. The BBC are circling the wagon and protecting their own. With the chairman, why is he still in post after creating what is actually an international diplomatic incident with the President of the United States? When we talked about it last week on The Breakfast Show, a lot of you called me and said, I want Donald Trump to take the BBC to the cleaners because they just don't get it. So arrogant, right? So full of themselves, and so in denial. They don't get it, which is why Parliament revealed last week that the BBC is losing over £1 billion a year on people that won't pay the licence fee. Why should they? Next up, are Reform UK supporters Nazis?
Big news coming this December. Our talkTV app is moving to the Talk app. You can watch, catch up and listen to all your favourite shows and podcasts anytime, anywhere, all on the Talk app. From Monday, 1st of December, the talkTV app will no longer exist, so don't miss out. So head over to your App Store or Google Play and search Talk now.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Morning Glory, lovely to have your company. It is 6:22, Mark Dolan with you until 10 o'clock, and so many stories to get through. Of course, our budget preview continues, but a fresh political row has broken out. Peter Bleksley, former Met Police detective, and it's in regard to a post by the chairman of the Conservative Party, Kevin Hollinrake, who on Sunday evening posted a comparison between Reform UK's special gold coin collection, which is a fundraising measure, to the Nazi Party's gold coin in the 1930s. It's gone down like a lead balloon. Should he go?
It bears no resemblance. This is the patheticness of it all, because Hollinrake allegedly did it as some kind of joke. And when you see the two side by side, like they are in some of the papers today, they don't look any similar in virtually any way, shape or form. So it's utter drivel. And to say he did it as a joke, well, it's not remotely funny either. Jokes should actually make you laugh.
It's a deep misjudgment. Do you think that Kemi Badenoch's got a decision to make now about his future?
I'm actually going to say, do you know what? I think Kemi Badenoch gets more impressive the longer she spends in the role. In fact, she was questioned about that when she did a press conference yesterday. And she quite rightly says, who's any good at their job on the first day? You do learn, you do morph into being a better employee or leader as she is.
Most definitely.
But if she is going to exert some authority, then there should be some kind of retribution, should I say, for what he's done. Whether it's a sacking offence, that would be a matter for Kemi Badenoch and her party, I guess. But it's just the daftness of it all. These people who are so cemented into the establishment and think that they've got wit and charm and humour, and they're usually devoid of all of those, to come up with a post like this is utterly juvenile. It's way off the mark. And it's just poor.
It's so poor, I agree with you, Peter. Christina has said, good morning, Mark. We are absolutely not Nazis. Suggest these people watch World at War and learn some history. Reform UK are fighting for our freedom. Christina, thank you so much for that. By the way, on the licence fee, Sharon, why should one pay TV licence fees for such a shambolic service? And Joanna in Salisbury, hi Mark, the BBC deserve everything that's coming to them from Donald Trump. They yesterday proved that they are everything Trump called them, and we've been paying for it without a choice. Unapologetic, biased and arrogant about it. Well done, Joanna. This row is definitely going to play out. 3 million people have so far seen this tweet by Kevin Hollinrake, which he sent on Sunday evening. It demonstrates the arrogance of the Tory party and how in denial they are about reform, about the threat it poses them, which, let's be honest, is not just a mild electoral threat. This is existential. Reform could well destroy the Tories.
Yeah, and they've got both the government and the Tory party on the run, haven't they? And deeply concerned. I think another kind of example of that was Nigel Farage being questioned yesterday about whether he'd ever said anything racist in the playground. I mean, how pathetic is that? Name me a child who hasn't seen or said or been a party to some unpleasant behaviour when they've been in the playground.
Well, it's the job of teenagers to say, especially teenage boys, to say stupid and outrageous things. That's what they do. And as producer Christian said earlier, they try to out-stupid each other with the most outrageous thing. That is what boys are like.
Yeah, but it's utterly pathetic to see grown men who are journalists grilling the leader of Reform over his behaviour in the playground decade upon decade upon decade ago.
It's wild, Peter. 50 to 60, maybe 70,000 men, fighting-age men, are entering the country illegally every year. Inflation's double the Bank of England's target, unemployment's up, growth is down, borrowing costs are through the roof, and yet they want to talk about what Nigel Farage said when he was 12. They have... These journalists, these commentators, they have the mental age of a 12-year-old for glossing over the real problems facing this country and indulging in this gutter-level student politics. Let's take a listen to the response from the leader of Reform UK, one Nigel Farage.
At school, categorically on the record, you did not racially abuse fellow people.
I would never, ever do it in a hurtful or insulting way.
That's not quite the same as not doing it.
It's 49 years ago. It's 49 years ago.
What difference does it? What difference to the time make?
Isn't it? Well, I just entered my teens. Can I remember everything that happened at school? No, I can't. Have I ever been part of an extremist organisation or engaged in direct, unpleasant personal abuse, genuine abuse, on that basis? No.
You're not quite... That's very, very caveated. You're not quite ruling this out. The question is, did you ever racially abuse fellow pupils in school?
No.
You've caveated
Not
it with
intent.
a hurtful way.
Not with intent.
What do you mean not with intent? I don't understand what you mean by not with intent. What does that mean?
You wouldn't do.
But what does that mean?
No.
No what?
No. I have never directly really tried to go and hurt.
Without wishing to criticise my colleagues, Peter, this is the problem with establishment media, that given the problems facing this country and having the rare opportunity of a few minutes with the man that is likely to be our next Prime Minister, and you discuss with him what he said in the playground when he was a little boy, 49 years ago.
It is utterly pathetic, but I think it's very symptomatic of how the major establishment parties are really on the run, so to speak.
Yeah.
They're deeply, deeply concerned
You're right.
about reform. So what message does that send to Nigel Farage and his leadership team? Keep on doing exactly what you're doing.
Well, you're
because
so
if
right.
that's the level they are going to stoop to, then just keep going.
Well, Mrs. Thatcher said that when people do insults, it means they've run out of arguments. And clearly it helped Donald Trump because for, months, if not years, in the run-up to the last election, you had the media and you had opposition politicians calling him Adolf Hitler and saying that he was going to basically end democracy and be a fascist. Well, I'm waiting for Donald Trump to... When does he become Hitler? Because, at the moment all he's doing is fighting hard to bring American jobs back to the United States. He's creating peace around the world. He's got these tariffs which have basically balanced things out trade-wise for America, and he's closed the southern border. When does the Hitler thing happen?
And look at some of the demographics that got him elected back into office.
Bingo.
Hispanics, people black skin and the such like
100%.
voted for him in record numbers.
Millions of young black men voted for Donald Trump, but apparently he's racist. Make it make sense. If Donald Trump is racist and an ethnic person votes for him, does that mean that they don't know he's racist? Are they then saying that those people of colour are stupid because they don't realise he's racist, which would be racist in itself? And I'm glad you mentioned this about skin colour, because it's my prediction that if Reform win the next election, which likely they will, I think they'll do so off the back of a multi-ethnic vote.
Oh, undoubtedly. I know people that have come to this country, and I'm talking decades ago. They've lived here for 50 years or more. They've built businesses. In fact, they're now in the processes of handing those businesses down to their adult children. And they are as British as bacon and egg.
Yeah.
And they absolutely love this country. They love the opportunities that it gave to them. They came here to contribute, not to take one penny in benefits. And those businesses thrive. They're at the centres of our communities. These people are crucial to our neighbourhoods, and now their children are running with the baton with those businesses. I hear increasingly those people are turning their eyes towards Mr. Farage.
Well, yes, and what we're talking about is hundreds of thousands of British Asians, for example, who will be voting Reform.
Yeah, indeed.
And it has to... want to ask you about the media as well, because you're so right about Labour and the Tories running scared of Reform, which is why now they're grasping at straws. They can't challenge Nigel Farage's policy platform because the things he's proposing are the reason why he's ahead in the polls, because the things he's proposing are what people want.
And they're what both the major parties seem to be adopting. Or certainly trying to ape in some way, shape or form.
They're getting there, Yeah. But what about the media too? You've got this guy, this just so-called journalist, and he's quizzing Farage about what he said when he was on the swings, right, and in the sand pit. They're culpable too. They're terrified of a Reform victory, aren't they?
I think they possibly are. I'd like to speak to their editors who dispatch them to go and ask such stupid questions. Who's in charge of tasking those journalists to go and do that when there is so much more that could be investigated, that could be of value to this country?
How about this from August? The texts are pouring in now. Jane, good morning, Jane. Welcome to Morning Glory. Lovely to have your company. Top of the morning, everyone, by the way. 20, what is it? 3, I'm not good. One thing I can't do is tell the time. It is 32 minutes past 6 in the morning. Get me another coffee. Jane says, good morning, Mark and Peter. The vultures are again circling over Nigel. It's a sure sign of how well Reform are doing. Peter, you look dapper today. See you in March. Jane? Excuse me? What about Mrs. Dolan ironed this tie late last night? Jane, thank you for your lovely text. He does look, I did say to him actually during an ad break how handsome and smart you look this morning, Peter. It's because he's gone showbiz, but he's got this tour coming up. He's got an agent, he's got a makeup artist, wardrobe, you name it, folks.
I don't have an agent. Let me just correct you on that one.
You represent yourself.
I do.
His agent sounds remarkably like Peter Blexley. Maggie says, good morning, Reform are on the rise, so the smears will now come thick and fast. The other parties know it and can see their seats being lost. That's Maggie in London. What a lovely name Maggie is. Mark, yes, Reform UK are Nazis. They're constantly singing From the River to the Sea, which is translated as wipe Israel and the Jews off the map. Oh, wait, hold on. That's the left, the other ones, isn't it? What a brilliant one from Brett there. Thank you, Brett. Hope I gave that justice. Margaret in Yorkshire. Good morning, Margaret. I've got a Maggie and a Margaret. I'm in Margaret heaven this morning. And Margaret says, Mark and Peter, it just shows how threatened the politicians feel regarding Reform, that they have to try and insult them all the time. Kevin in Southampton. Good morning, Kevin. Mark, God forbid anyone from Reform is attacked, then all of these people who posted Nazi tweets or done so verbally should be held to account. Kevin, you're so right. This kind of language threatens our public figures. It actually threatens anyone working for Reform, even someone just putting letters in the letterbox. It's a disgraceful thing. And more of those texts to come. But next up at 34 minutes past 6 on a Tuesday morning, Rachel Reeves. She wants to be Chancellor for years to come. We'll discuss that next.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Top of the morning to you. It is Morning Glory. It is 36 minutes past 6. Happy Tuesday, 1-0. May I salute you this morning, whatever you're up to. Perhaps you're at the tail end of a night shift, in which case I thank you for your toil. Rachel Reeves doesn't realise that some people work through the night just to make a living. What does she want to do? Tax them more and punish them for saving? Perhaps you're still lingering in bed waiting for the day to start. Perhaps you're getting the kids' breakfast ready. Whatever you're up to, wishing you a very big and productive Tuesday as we preview the budget and a slightly troubling thought in the Times newspaper. Reeves tells Labour MPs to unite for her budget, but she's also insisted that she'll still be Chancellor in 2 years' time as she hits out at misogyny in public life and urged Labour MPs to unite behind her tax-raising budget. I'm very confused, though, because taxes are clearly going to rise in the budget tomorrow, but we've got recorded footage of her saying something quite different. Take a listen.
I'm really clear. I'm not coming back with more borrowing or more taxes. And that is why, at this budget, we did wipe the slate clean.
What the budget in October did was draw a line under the economic and financial mismanagement of the Conservative government. I've now put our public finances in order, so never again will I have to do a budget like I did in October. Our public finances are now on a firm footing. We have now set the public spending envelope for this Parliament. We don't need to come back and ask for more. We've now set that. We're going to do a zero-based review to make sure we get value for money for every pound that taxpayers' money spent. In that budget, I've tried to fix the foundations and wipe the slate clean.
But it's so 1.3% year after next, for example. And that implies, doesn't it, that you're going to have to come back and ask for yet more tax rises?
Absolutely not. We have now set the envelope of spending for this Parliament, and we're going to live within our means.
It's amazing, isn't it? It's what they call Orwellian doublespeak. George Orwell's 1984, which is basically just a sort of description of modern Britain. And Orwellian doublespeak is where the thing that you say is the opposite of the truth. And welcome to Rachel Reeves. But good news, Peter Blexley, she'll still be Chancellor in 2 years' time.
Even though she has been playing the victim card, of course, which happens to so many people these days. If somebody criticises them or offends them in any way, they have to be a victim. And she's now claiming, of course, to be a victim of misogyny. She didn't realise how that it exists in public life. Well, come on, Rachel, if you were a bit more competent, if your budget of last year had created some growth, had done good for the public finances, then maybe you would be having some praise lauded upon you. But of course, your national insurance and your minimum wage hike absolutely crippled the hospitality industry and others, and consequently, you're coming back tomorrow. Oh my word, brace yourselves, everyone.
Well, definitely, and I'm glad you mentioned the tax raid on hospitality, because one of the really upsetting aspects of that Halloween budget is the impact it had on job opportunities for young people, because hospitality predominantly employs the under 30s. And the reason why is because working in a pub or a restaurant or hotel is a great opportunity for a school leaver or a graduate that just needs to get earning. And she has closed that door on a young generation. And I think it's a real problem for young people that they can't start their life with the work ethic, right? The last thing you want is a 21-year-old hanging around at home watching telly.
As the father of my two youngest are 23 and 24, I've been seeing them go through this very challenging job application process. So I'm red hot on it, together with all their mates and the such like. We're forever discussing this kind of thing. I'm just going to throw something into the mix for you now, which you may or may not agree with, but I've been doing some research in recent times of people who work in banking and accounting, for example, the financial services sector, and I'm discovering there's a lot of jobs which may be considered as entry-level jobs, for example, for people leaving uni or leaving school. Entry-level jobs in the financial services sector are outsourced to India. Now, if I were in charge in any way, shape or form, I would be saying...
We can but dream.
To the financial services sector, either you give up your craven greed by outsourcing these jobs and offer them to young people in this country, because not only have we got millions of, many people unemployed, we've got millions of others on benefits, and it's all very well saying, I think, politicians saying, we'll get them off benefits, we'll get them back into work, but these entry-level jobs are all outsourced to India because the financial institutions are so greedy they want to employ people cheaply. Come on, let's have these jobs back in the UK. Give our kids a chance, please.
Which is exactly what Trump has done in America, where he has forced companies like Apple, well, not forced, but heavily incentivized companies like Apple to bring jobs back to America. And but Apple have agreed to invest about $2 billion in special brand new locations and sites on mainland America for jobs for American people, and that's what we need. And you mentioned jobs exported, right? It's a big one, and then the other one is going to be AI as well.
Yeah, now, and there is, of course, an argument that many of these jobs, say, for example, in accounting, they call it reconciliation work. So it might be an entry-level job for a young employee to go through reams of bills and invoices and receipts and the such like, reconciling all the figures, making sure that income and expenditure and all that kind of matches up. OK, decent entry-level job. Show your talent, it'll be realised. But they're thinking that they may, in the future, be done by AI, but I'm being told by these people who work in those sectors that is still some way away, apparently.
Most definitely. How about the texts that are coming in thick and fast? Anna in Surrey, this is about Nigel Farage. Was he a racist when he was 7? Anna says, Mark, I did, when I was at school, I used to call a guy that was in my class names. He's a different race to me, and 37 years later, we're best friends, and he is godfather to my brother's daughters. What we did in the 70s, we communicated good and bad. Chris used to call me Fatty. Secretly, we always had the hots for each other. What a lovely story, Anna. I love that. Huey says, good morning, Mark and Peter. If you think that they're bad now, this is, I think, the media, then just wait a while, because they're going to try... Oh, this is opposition parties. If you think they're bad now, just wait a while, because they're going to try and dig up anything and everything they can to stop Farage ever being PM. They will go all out to bring him down between now and the next general election. Huey, thank you for that. Hi, Mark. These lefty journalists are pathetic and desperate. Who didn't sing Hitler has only got one ball? The other is in the Albert Hall when they were young, especially at football matches. Roll on reform taking over the country, with hopefully Peter Blexley taking over this shower of a woke police force. Thank you, Mark. And this is Darren, who calls himself a skint market trader from Suffolk. And Darren, it makes me so angry that you feel that you've got to call yourself a skint market trader. I've got no doubt you are, because you are being taxed to the hilt. The other problem that you've got, Darren, you'll understand this, is that your customers who come to your market to buy your goods are skint as well. It's a race to the bottom, isn't it? But Darren, I salute you, because being a market trader is hard work. It's early starts, it's long hours, you're outside, and financially it's a real challenge too. So more power to you, Darren, and thank you for your message. Sir Keir Starmer, by the way, the economy is obviously a hot mess now. So what's he been doing? He's been at a school doing something called the 6-7 trend. Take a listen.
Oh, it's not on the same
6-7. Yeah. 6-7. Everybody. 6-7. Are you doing page 6-7?
We're not over that yet. We're not over that. Still very much a thing.
See you later. That's a bit wild.
Stuff for that lovely 6-7. You know, children get into trouble for saying that in maths school.
Oh, do they?
So,
right.
yeah, they're lovely children in year 2.
Yeah, there we are. Sorry about that.
No, it's absolutely fine. It's fine.
I didn't start it, miss.
What a horrible fraud he is, with all of the charisma of a dead newt. That's our Prime Minister, folks. Well done, everyone. He's been talking about the budget as well. It's going to have Labour values, which I've got to say worries me.
Will be a Labour budget with Labour values. It will be absolutely focused on fairness, and that'll be at the heart of it. But the 3 things that matter above all else, the principles on which we're building the budget are protecting our public services, our NHS, put record investment in, and that means that waiting lists are coming down. That is a good thing, but we need to do more. We need to get our debt down as a country, and we absolutely need to act on the cost of living.
Is anyone else sick of saving the NHS? And Peter Blexley, this budget is going to have Labour values. Be afraid, be very afraid. What does that mean? Bankruptcy and debt?
It means expressions such as social mobility, which I shall now decode for you, OK? That means making us all as skint as one another. That's what social mobility means. The absolute nonsense of this. One of the many nonsense is the suggestion, and it seems to come from authoritative sources, that Rachel Reeves is going to reduce the size of ISAs, how much you can save in an ISA before you have to pay tax on it. And apparently there's various figures being bandied about. It's now £20,000 a year you can save. They're going to reduce that to 12 or 10 possibly. Now, if you have a nation that you want to conduct itself responsibly, its citizens, with their finances, then surely a low risk, in fact a kind of zero risk savings plan, would be quite something you would want to encourage, I would have thought.
Of course.
So that people who are fortunate enough at the end of the year to have some money that they want to put away safely, that won't go into stocks and shares, therefore it might not tank in the eventuality of a crash. I know they recover, but sometimes it takes years for that to happen. You would surely promote this, and you would want people to be, to use a word that former Labour Chancellor for over a decade, Gordon Brown, used all the time, prudent. Wouldn't you want people to be prudent?
Oh, wouldn't you just indeed? And that's a brilliant, brilliant point. Couldn't agree with you more. So much more to come, more front pages, but this debate is raging. It's the topic of today's Dolan's Dispatch. Tory party chairman deluded, in denial, arrogant and offensive as he compares Reform UK to the Nazi Party. More on that next.
In terms of your question around taxes, there are no additional tax rises needed beyond the ones that I've set out. Don't need to increase taxes.
I'm not coming back with more borrowing or more taxes.
I will not increase your national insurance. I will not increase your VAT, and I will not increase your income tax. We don't need to come back for more. We've done that now. We've wiped the slate clean. The economic circumstances have declined, deteriorated since a year ago. We are having to look at taxes and spending.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, this is Morning Glory. It is 6:50, coming up to 6:51. I hope you're having a good start to the day. It is Tuesday. We're previewing Rachel Reeves' budget, Halloween budget, the sequel. Be afraid, be very afraid. What most worries you about the budget? How is it going to impact you? Tell me about your financial situation. Let me know where you're at the moment. Got a lovely market trader called Darren who simply describes himself as skint. And so many people feel that way. So 03444991000. Tell me about your finances and how they could be worsened by what Rachel plans to do in the next 24 hours. Text the word talk in your message to 87222. You can also leave us a voice note, which Pete has done. Take it away, Pete.
Robbing Rachel Reeves wants to say Chancellor. I think there's a slip of the tongue there. I think what they mean is she's not Chancellor, she's just a Chancellor. She needs to go. She's deluded if they think Labour are going to get a second term with what's going on at the moment. You know, they're taking us so far down the rabbit hole, we're never going to get out whatsoever. This country is going to be sunk under Labour, absolutely sunk.
Brilliant stuff. Thank you for that voice note, Pete. Really enjoyed it. It's very true. She's not the Chancellor. She is the Chancellor. That's a great line. I'd like to get to a couple of your other messages. Good morning, Mark and Dapper Peter. When debating, you know that you've won when your opponent has to resort to personal insults. This is the Tory party chairman comparing reform to the Nazi party. Nick goes on, this is exactly what the mainstream media and indeed the left wing of the political spectrum are currently doing with Nigel and the gang from Reform. Let's just have a general election now, because let's face facts, Reform have won already. Ash says, good morning, Mark. Please name and shame the journalist asking Nigel questions about what he said when he was a child in the playground. Whoever he is, he's a searchlight over Dresden and Farage is a Lancaster bomber. Ash, born and bred in Slough. Good morning, Mark, says Carl. I'm afraid to say that most reporting from these so-called journalists is just gutter reporting. They come from being brainwashed at university straight into journalism, bringing with them all their biased, and it's what's killing mainstream media. Will Reform be swept to power on a multi-ethnic vote? Well, Michael says, good morning, Mark and Peter. I'm from a mixed family. My grandma English, grandfather African, came over in the 60s. My father's Irish, my mother mixed race. And all of us are voting Reform. Mark and Peter, Paul and crew here. The comments on the playground questions are a sign of the times. A vocal, loud section of society is more concerned about wokery and identity politics than proper life experience and principles. Poor journalism, and this will only help to improve Farage's and Reform's standing in the political world. The left have shot themselves in the foot again. Great show, says Paul in crew. Paul, thank you for that. And how about this? This is Rachel. Good morning, Mark. This is Rachel, but don't worry, it's not Rachel Reeves. She says, I think Labour are deluded. I predict they will not be in power by Christmas. Nigel Farage, 4 p.m. Well, you couldn't rule it out, Rachel, if there was an economic collapse. It's not inconceivable that Starmer will be a stuffed turkey this Christmas. Peter, another important story in today's Sun newspaper, and it's about a special device that may help the war against stolen goods.
Yes, page 12 of the Sun today.
Yeah.
The retail brand Next have worked with an AI company to develop scanners which can detect stolen property concealed in clothing.
Yeah.
And they've rolled it out at their warehouses and their distribution centres, obviously with a view to catching dishonest employees. And how it works is that it detects differences in temperature. So, say, for example, you decide to take a packet of a couple of shirts and stuff them down the front of your trousers, for example, OK?
Don't give me ideas.
No, sorry, this early in the morning.
I'm off to Zara later.
So the area where you did not have those shirts stuffed would give out more heat, and the scanner would pick it up.
Right.
And so it would look abnormal because those packet of two shirts would be blocking the heat from coming out of the front, say, for example. So that's kind of how the technology works, and now they're thinking of rolling it out in their stores. Anything that helps with this shoplifting epidemic would be great, but depressingly, the Metropolitan Police told me last week we can't arrest our way out of the shoplifting epidemic. My question is, how on earth will you do it then?
Well, I agree, and I'm all for having this technology. I think AI, artificial intelligence, is going to help with policing. I think that you've obviously got previously, and you still have CCTV, that kind of stuff. DNA evidence is very clever, and now you've got these scanners. Technology will go some way, Peter, but nothing beats old school policing.
And just as I said, way back in the 90s when I was still policing and computers were coming in and so many people, officers, senior officers, were buying in to computerisation. This will revolutionise policing and this, that and the other.
It'll end all crime.
Yeah, exactly. We'll live in some crime-free nirvana where we all leave our front doors open when we go down the high street. I turn around to my bosses and I say, Governor, a computer will never nick anyone. And they don't. You still need cops, you still need detectives to say, hello, sunshine, get out of bed, put your trousers on, you're nicked.
Get your trousers on, you're nicked. A Union flag exhibition, OK, this is to celebrate this country. He's a wonderful artist who's done an excellent collage of different images and symbols, and it all comes together and it becomes the Union Jack. A lovely piece of art, which should be highly valuable, except it's been cancelled. It's been banned by Brighton Council.
Yeah, and this artist has reimagined what the Union flag might look like if it were to include different colours, for example. So we're going to, I'm sure, see browns in it and blacks in it to reflect minority communities and the such like, and all of that. And by all accounts, it's been very well received. It's been at the Tate, it's been shown at other galleries and the such like. Yeah. And you would think that a Labour local council would appreciate the arts and culture, wouldn't you? I've been fortunate enough to work in the arts sector. I've written plays for Radio 4, I've consulted on television shows and films and the such like, and so I've met many people involved in that, what is in the UK, a thriving sector. So, of course, the Labour Council should show this. What does art do? Challenges your thinking, doesn't it? Makes you look at something and think perhaps abstractly, differently. No, not Brighton. No, ban it.
What about the Motability scheme? Luxury cars to be removed from this scheme, which provides disabled people with a vehicle. This is page 4 of the Times.
Yep, very good. I don't want people
common sense, isn't
getting mobility cars that are Mercedes, Audis, BMWs and the such like. That's not what the whole scheme was devised for. It came to my attention the other day that certain people have mobility cars sitting on the driveway and yet their disabled children still get transport to and from school. I'd like certain local councils to drill down on that, because if they've got a mobility car, that is to transport the child to and from school. They should not also be receiving a taxi service.
Meanwhile, half of all Brits now want to scrap HS2. What would you do with this rather expensive rail project, Peter?
OK, controversial standpoint here coming from me this morning. I would have had it in its first,
incarnation,
all the way up north. I'm travelling up north tomorrow. I go there quite regularly. I love the north of England, but its rail services are utterly shambolic in so many ways. Try catching a train across the Pennines. Our northern relatives, friends and cousins are very, very badly served by a rail system that is not sufficient. I'd have let it go the whole way, the whole hog, and let others branch off it and reinvent
the brilliant
rail.
Peter Blexley. More to come. This is Morning Glory.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Coming up to you 3 minutes past 7. Top of the morning, one and all. Happy Tuesday. I'm Mark Dolan. This is Morning Glory. And breaking news this morning, the chairman of the Conservative Party under pressure to resign over a joke post on X comparing Reform UK to Adolf Hitler's Nazi party. It's a crisis that threatens to engulf the Tory party, having sparked huge anger among Reform UK supporters, with Nigel Farage said to be furious at the comparison. Speaking of Nigel, does it matter what he said in the playground 49 years ago as woke journalists quiz him about alleged racist remarks in the playground? Meanwhile, the BBC in disarray over bias claims as the corporation's chairman refuses to back down in the Donald Trump censored speech row with a clear message in Parliament yesterday: nothing to see here. Why is he still in a job? And as Rachel prepares her accounts for the year in a hotly anticipated and widely feared budget, Sir Keir Starmer and David Lammy will escape the proposed mansion tax whilst other wealth creators are taken to the cleaners. That's convenient, isn't it? That Lammy and Starmer evade another tax. Also this morning, the Chancellor prepares to wage war on savers to plug her self-inflicted black hole. Our budget preview continues today. And in today's Dolan's Dispatch, the Tory party chairman thinks you're a Nazi if you're worried about open borders. Well, I'll be delivering my unapologetic verdict on the increasingly deranged and in denial Tory party in a special Dolan's Dispatch at 9 a.m. with live reaction off the back from Anne Widdecombe, a woman that left the Tory party because of its shift leftward many years ago. And Brighton Council cancels a Union Jack art exhibit for fear of causing offence. And half of all Brits now back scrapping HS2. So, a very busy 3 hours to come. My priority for the next 3 hours is to get your opinions on the national television and radio airwaves. My phone number is 0344 499 1000. Tommy is taking your calls. So book your place on the show. Text the word talk in your message to 87222. Or leave me a lovely voice note. Shall we kick off the hour with a voice note from Karen on tomorrow's budget?
Hi Mark, I'm one of the alarm clock people. I'm off to work now. It's 5 to 7. I've been up since 5:30. I'm going to work to earn a few shekels to pay for all the hotels and all the benefits that people are claiming. I'm one of many taxpayers. And Rachel Reeves is deluded. I think she's created a black hole over the working people because it seems to be sucking all our money out of our pockets. Anyway, have a good show.
Oh my goodness, I can't not have a good show after that voice note. It was so good that, Christian, I'm going to ask you to save that and I'd like to play it in the next hour because I think it was a brilliant voice note from Karen, because what you've said there is so true, that the black hole is not in the Treasury, it's not in Whitehall, it's in your wallet. It's your energy bills at home to heat the house. It's your petrol. It's the inflation, which is chipping away at the value of the cash in your pocket and at the cost of goods, which, of course, explodes. A brilliant, brilliant thing. And I love the idea of the alarm clock people, because Keir Starmer struggled, didn't he, before the election to describe what working people are. Well, working people are people that go to work. I mean, what an absolute fool that man is. Well, I like that definition. If you don't mind, Karen, I'm going to take that. Alarm clock people. Are you an alarm clock person? Let me know. Give me a call. Tell me about your finances and tell me about how hard you work. 0344 499 1000. Today's show is dedicated to the alarm clock Brits. A massive, massive row now is breaking out between Reform and the Conservatives, with the chairman of the Tory party, Kevin Hollinrake, having sent a jokey post on X on Sunday evening comparing the Reform UK party and their special sort of rather expensive merchandise, which is this posh gold coin, to a similar gold coin that was peddled by the Nazis in the 1930s. It's gone down like a lead balloon. He's dug in, the post is still up, and Kemi Badenoch said it was a joke. Is that true? Let's get the views of the deputy political editor of The Spectator magazine, James Heal. Good morning, James.
Morning, Mark.
James, I am a free speech absolutist. No crime was committed here, no law was broken. Kevin Hollinrake is entitled to send that post. However, it was an act of very poor judgment, was it not?
Yes, I'd agree. I think it's gone down pretty badly. And of course, if you're going to make a joke or a political point, the key thing is making sure all your troops are behind you. And I've been contacted by current and former Conservative MPs who feel like this was in pretty poor taste. They're disappointed in their chairman, who's had a reasonably good few months taking the fight to Labour. And I think that you're now seeing people like Suella Braverman go public with their criticism. So I think that it's all blown up in a storm. And actually, after a weekend when the Reform Party should have been answering questions, perhaps, over some things like, the Nathan Gill trial, what's happened there, actually it's put them on the front foot, and the Conservatives are now having to spend their time and energy just for the budget defending a rather asinine post online.
Yes, and it demonstrates, doesn't it, that the Conservative Party as an institution just doesn't know how to deal with the threat of reform.
Yeah, I certainly think that's accurate. And I think we've seen throughout the whole of Kemi Badenoch's one-year leadership this inability to tackle reform. I think that is shown in the fact that they didn't have a strategy. They've tried to frame it as Starmer versus Badenoch. But of course, Mark, the next election is likely to be a contest actually with Nigel Farage playing a much bigger role. He's on about 30%. So I think that inability to close down reform, respond to a rival party on the right, is something the Conservative parties never had to deal with before, and they haven't shown any way of getting to grips with it yet.
Most definitely. And it's an insult, isn't it, to anyone watching or listening to this show to strike any parallels between the Reform Project and the Nazi Party of the 1930s.
Well, quite, and it seems to be a sort of badge on the shirt. It seems very odd. I mean, I suppose the one upside for the Reform Party is that they've had a lot of publicity for it, and I'm sure when these products go on sale that they'll get a lot of people snapping them up, given the media demands. But yes, quite right, nothing compared to...
Oh, is it a badge?
I think it's a badge on a shirt, is what I'm told.
Right, yeah.
That'll be sold online.
It's going to be the equivalent of the MAGA hat, isn't it?
Well, that's what they've gone with it. I mean, it's quite a sort of interesting thing, which is that in Reform, they tell me that is basically their sort of MAGA thing. Everyone loves political branding. You think of Churchill's cigar in the past, you think of different sort of Maggie's handbag. This is the modern equivalent of that.
What's also surprising is that the labelling of anyone that's a Conservative, anyone that's on the political right, as a Nazi is normally the playbook of the hard left, and now the Tories are doing it.
Well, it's just a fairly asinine and facile thing to do, isn't it? I mean, of course, there's Goodwin's law. Whoever brings up the Nazis first tends to lose a debate, and it is odd to see it. I mean, I'm not really sure what the grand strategy was behind it. It seemed that Kevin Hollinrake posted this tweet, then deleted it, then reposted it. So I'm not exactly sure it's a row they ought to be leaning into. And yet, of course, we're now 2 days in and it's still up online.
No, I actually expected Hollinrake to either step down or be fired by Kemi Badenoch. Are you surprised that she's dug in and said, look, it was a joke and the country's got more serious problems to tackle?
So I think Kevin Hollinrake has been a pretty good chairman. They've taken the fight to people like Angela Rayner and Peter Mandelson over the last couple of months or so. They were trying to go after the number 10 chief of staff, Morgan McSweeney, too. I don't think he should probably lose his job over this. I do think it was a misjudgment. And of course, it just allows Reform to play the victims again at a time when actually the Conservatives were hoping that they might be able to get some of the sort of mud stick over some of the different things that have been coming out in recent weeks.
James, Nigel Farage, the Reform UK leader, stands accused of racism in the playground as a schoolboy. Take a listen to his response.
At school, categorically on the record, you did not racially abuse fellow pupils.
I would never, ever do it in a hurtful or insulting way.
That's not quite the same as not doing it.
It's 49 years ago. It's 49 years ago.
What difference is it? What difference to the time?
Isn't it? Well, I just entered my teens. Can I remember everything that happened at school? No, I can't. Have I ever been part of an extremist organisation or engaged in direct, unpleasant personal abuse, genuine abuse, on that basis? No.
You're not quite... That's very, very caveated. You're not quite ruling this out. The question is, did you ever racially abuse fellow pupils in school? No. You've caveated it with a hurtful way.
Not with intent.
What do you mean not with intent? I don't understand what you mean by not with intent. What does that mean?
You wouldn't do.
But what does that mean?
No.
No what?
No. I have never directly really tried to go and
James, I've got a very powerful text from Nicola in Norfolk. Good morning, Nicola. I hope you're having a good Tuesday. Good morning, Mark. She says, the media are clearly struggling to find anything credible to challenge Farage about if the best they can come up with is stupid things he might have said when he was 13? Proper journalism is a shadow of what it used to be. What do you make of this row?
So look, I think that these claims have been around for a number of years. Michael Crick, who is Nigel Farage's biographer, first reported them more than a decade ago. I think that it's something that within Reform they want to sort of take seriously, and you saw that interview just there. I think it might be fair to say from those comments, obviously, that Farage might have said something silly 40, 50 years ago. His whole point, of course, is that he's never meant it in a malicious way, anything like that, and he was trying to contextualise that in that record of what he's had done in active politics the past 30 years. So he'll always say, for instance, no one's done more to destroy the far right in this country than me. He looks at how, for instance, he's driven out far right parties, UKIP, and now successive parties since then. So I think he's trying to make a case which is put all in the context. I think overall it's probably not going to harm Reform. I think there are some people who put them off. The only thing I would say, of course, Mark, is that since last year, when Reform has had incredible success in many different areas, the one metric which is worrying for the party is that more people now think they're racist than they were 18 months ago. Now, you may argue that that is not important, but if the party really wants to go to 35, 40%, as senior aides tell me, they will need to ensure that they are seen as a mainstream party and attract more appeal from ethnic minority voters as well. So I don't think this is going to be the thing that stops the Reform bandwagon. I think this is something they're trying to take seriously. But I do think that overall it's probably going to be something they need to look at in terms of longer term sort of image and how they handle this kind of row.
Most definitely. Is it quite smart of Farage not to deny? Because he could so easily deny, given that there's no tape, that this happened 5 decades ago.
Well, it often, as you'll see, boils down to one person's remark against his. And so if you've got sort of, as The Guardian have, sort of half a dozen people on the record making these claims, it then gets into a war of words. Right. So I suspect that, Farage is very conscious of the fact that recollections may vary in that infamous phase. And actually, we don't know what was, we don't know what records there were, etc. So I think that he's probably just hoping to say, look, if I have said anything, and he doesn't think he has, but if he had said anything, it wasn't malicious in the slightest.
Meanwhile, the Telegraph report, James, that the Home Office is to house more migrants in Epping. Of course, this is a notorious setting because it's the location of the Bell Hotel, where a young woman was assaulted by somebody accommodated in that hotel. And not a young woman, it was a 14-year-old girl, which sparked widespread protests. More migrants to come. This is tone deaf, isn't it?
Well, quite. And I think that, this is the problem. Unfortunately, you've got these thousands of people arriving, a record year for arrivals here. Where are you going to put them? And, of course, the Home Office, in their way, very detached from the realities and the sensitivities on the ground. I haven't been to Epping myself, but many of my colleagues have and seen, have reported on what's happened there. And I think that, it's clearly going to be something that exacerbates all of that. And I think that, we're seeing more and more of these protests, a lot of anger, and I think the mood is hardening. And so having this decision to put more in Epping, I think, will only going to sort of turbocharge the politics there. And I think we'll see really interesting things happening in the run-up to next year's mayoral election in Essex, the first time that's being held. And I expect Reform will win that pretty comfortably.
I'm today championing what an excellent listener to the show, Karen, called the alarm clock Brits. Those are the people that get up early in the morning and they put a shift in, they pay their taxes, James. They put in more than they take out. And people are really, really concerned. Alarm clock Brits are really worried about tomorrow's budget. I've got this from Neil in Dundee. Good morning, Mark. I'm dreading the budget this week. I'm a senior manager and my wife is a teacher working part-time. And on paper, we have a good income, but in reality, we have less and less to spend every month and have to live much more frugally than the generation before us. Where will it end? There's not going to be much good news tomorrow, is there?
No, there will be some winners, a lot of losers, and I suspect that those people you're talking about there, Mark, Alarm Clock Britain, will feel very, very crushed and squeezed by it. More than half the country now takes out more than it puts in, and what we're going to see tomorrow is, because of the decisions Labour have made on the benefits, so lifting the two-child benefit and giving a 4.8% increase in inflation, above inflation on terms of benefits, it means that people who aren't sort of claiming from the state are going to feel pretty hard done by when it comes to it. So lots of bad news tomorrow.
James, always good news to have you on the show. A brilliant assessment of the big stories of the day. James Heal is the deputy political editor of The Spectator magazine, which I think is the oldest political periodical in history. Anyway, it's a great read, and he's their political editor deputy. On the budget, are you an alarm clock Brit? Because I've got your back. You are my focus this morning. Paula has got concerns. Here's a voice note.
Morning, Mark. Paula in Liverpool. This government just seems to want to impoverish everybody. I don't understand what their long-term goals are or what their long-term aims are. We are getting ripped off left, right and centre. Oil and gas wholesale prices have gone down, yet the petrol pump prices are going up. Our central heating bills are going up. I read an article this morning about how much we're being ripped off over just watching sport on television compared to other countries. They're now disincentivising saving, they're disincentivising working. Meanwhile, people are leaving the country hand over fist, and we're bringing in people who want to deliver food for a living. What is going on? Somebody get rid of them quick. Paula in Liverpool.
Paula. An incredible voice note at 17 minutes past 7. We might have to play that one later as well. Paula gets it. You get it. I get it. Why don't those that govern us and those that administer the bureaucracy, why don't they get it? Well, they just don't, which is why change is coming. Next up, the BBC in disarray, but their chairman says nothing to see here. That's next.
In terms of your question around taxes, there are no additional tax rises needed beyond the ones that I've set out. Don't need to increase taxes.
I'm not coming back with more borrowing or more taxes.
I will not increase your national insurance. I will not increase your VAT, and I will not increase your income tax. We don't need to come back for more. We've done that now. We've wiped the slate clean. The economic circumstances have declined, deteriorated since a year ago. We are having to look at taxes and spending.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
21 minutes past 7. This is Morning Glory. Lovely to have your company. Mark Dolan with you until 10 a.m. Between now and then, Dolan's dispatch. The Tory party are in denial and in free fall as their chairman compares Reform UK to the Nazi Party. I'll get reaction from Anne Widdecombe. It's a very, very busy show today. Of course, the budget preview continues. I'm taking your voice notes. You can also call the show 03444991000. Meanwhile, does it matter what Nigel Farage said 49 years ago when he was a teenager in the playground? This is Wayne with a voice note. Take it away, Wayne.
Morning, Mark. Great show, mate. It's Wayne from Erdington in Birmingham. I mean, is this our journalism now? Questioning what Nigel Farage said when he was 8, playing a game of conkers in the playground. Do me a favour. Nonsense, mate. Keep up the good work, guys.
Top man, Wayne, we can't do it without you. Are you a alarm clock Brit? I want to hear what you're going through financially. If you're someone that gets up in the morning, puts a shift in, tell me about your finances. The government think that if you make, I don't know, 40, 50 grand a year, that you're rich. And as so many of you said, that is quite the opposite. Inflation is chipping away at your money. Costs of goods, food, you name it, it's all gone up, energy. So let me know if you're struggling. Are you an alarm clock Brit? Because you are the focus of today's show. We're also looking at our national state broadcaster, the BBC. Front page of the Daily Telegraph, BBC in disarray over bias claims. The BBC chairman has insisted he will not resign despite deep divisions at the broadcaster being exposed at a public hearing. Samir Shah's leadership of the BBC came under intense scrutiny by MPs as a fellow director said there was a sharp difference of opinion between board members about how the corporation should respond to the Telegraph's disclosure of bias at the corporation. It sounds like they are in denial and in free fall as well. Let's get reaction now from a former BBC star, Sally Jones. Good morning, Sally. Welcome to Morning Glory.
Morning, Mark. Good to see you.
What's your reaction to what happened in Parliament yesterday?
I was almost disbelieving. The BBC are in a real calamity here. They seem just not to have got the first clue as to what ordinary people feel about this. Samir Shah, it seemed to me, waffled. He was desperately trying to protect his job. He was even saying that he felt he should have. He admitted he'd tried hard to defend Tim Davie, who of course also resigned, as well as Deborah Turness. But I could not believe that when the apologies came out, there were apologies for nearly everybody, except one mention of the man who potentially could bring down the whole BBC, Donald Trump. And they've already had to give a pretty grovelling apology to him, knowing how litigious he is. He will be watching every move that they're making, every word that's said. They seem to think that because he's in America, that they can say what they like to their own little echo chamber and get away with it. Michael Prescott said he didn't agree with a single thing that Trump said or thought. Well, he may not, but that's not a great time to say it. They're trying to get Trump on side, or at least to persuade him not to sue the BBC from here to kingdom come. When he's got billions in the bank, the BBC has something like 480 million pounds in sort of ready cash. They could be absolutely taken down, and I thought it was a very, very tone-deaf performance.
Is this typical of the culture of the BBC to be in denial when facing a crisis, Sally?
I think it's what we've talked about before. It's this idea of an echo chamber. People have said, particularly in news, of course, there are wonderful things that the BBC do well. A lot of their factual programmes where political bias is not so obvious are some of the best in the world. But their news and current affairs, they seem almost willfully blind to the fact that there is this systemic, institutional left-wing bias there. There was such a feeling of nothing to see here yesterday, and it takes me back when people just assumed that everybody would be on the left liberal views, particularly the ones in the opinion-forming parts of BBC News and Current Affairs, most of the national news programmes, many of the BBC radio programmes. It was just assumed that that was the enlightened, the woke, well, the word woke wasn't around then, but the idea of that was what good people thought. And yesterday you got the impression that Michael Prescott thought that he was one of the good people, and therefore he was virtue signalling by saying how much he disagreed with Trump. But essentially they're handing Trump a smoking gun. Trump is looking for ways to show that fake news is being propagated about him. Just the fact that they're saying things like, oh, well, the word fight was used 15 times and the word peace only once. That is not an excuse for misleading people with a totally misleading editing of a clip. And I certainly saw it. There was such a feeling that as somebody who was either right or centrist, you would not really have voiced your views in the full newsroom for fear of being absolutely torn limb from limb. And it even then, it affected the stories that they chose to cover, as well as the way they covered them.
Most definitely. This is Journalism 101. A bad edit is a bad edit. And what's most egregious about this, Sally, is that there may well be a case to answer on the part of Donald Trump for his remarks on January the 6th. And yet the clearly very politically motivated producers of that show managed to do a botch job with that horrible edit. You know, you can comfortably and with integrity make a case against Trump on that fateful day, but somehow they've managed to sort of crash this plane into their own building. Let's take a listen. Go on.
Twice running.
Twice, it's true.
Newsnight and Panorama.
Twice previously.
A very similar edit.
No, it was wild, wasn't it? And that's therefore cultural and not a mistake. Let's take a listen, Sally, to the BBC chairman, Samir Shah, speaking to a parliamentary select committee yesterday.
I think the real issue here was the impression left that the President Trump in his 6th of January speech had encouraged, called to violent action. And what we had to apologise for was that, as well as the splicing of the edit. It's my view that editing interviews is a normal journalistic practice. So that in itself is not what the problem was. The problem was the impression that it led, that it was an impression that President Trump had called for direct violent action, and that wasn't the case, and that is what I thought needed to be apologised for. So the answer to your question is, I didn't think it was adequate. I thought it was necessary, but not sufficient.
Sally, the BBC has enormous global soft diplomatic power. It's an admired news and entertainment and cultural brand. It does so many good things on a daily basis in radio, on TV and online. There are some great journalists, broadcasters and entertainers on the BBC. We don't want to just burn the whole thing down, do we? But how would you fix it?
It's such a tough one because that culture is embedded. I would say that most journalists probably have a sort of tendency to be on the left. They have a tendency to question and to go after things. I mean, particularly the national BBC ones. I think that there possibly needs to be a second external strand of people of a board who can actually look at all the things which the board ignored when these particular concerns were flagged up. You want a tiger with a lot more teeth to be able to keep an eye on what, to those of us outside the BBC, looks like egregious bias, but to those within the BBC at the moment, those in news and current affairs, it feels like this is what they've always done, and I have a horrible feeling that if something really strong and powerful is not brought in to supervise it, we're just going to have this all over again. This edit, for example, is really not stock journalistic practice. I think Shah waffled dreadfully yesterday. It made me very sad to see a chairman of the BBC who looked so powerless and so lacking in leadership. And I really think that they also need to, I mean, it's very difficult to do all the sort of unconscious bias training that, for example, they put the police through over things like racism and right-wing views. I can't see that would happen easily within the BBC. So I think what it needs is people to be made far more aware of how they seem to act to people outside, people not with their mindset, not poshos in Islington, ordinary provincial people sitting here thinking what millions of your viewers think, that, you know, that it really needs a big change. And I think an external body to supervise bias would be a first step.
Sally, we always enjoy having you on the show, an exemplary broadcaster, former BBC star, who frankly should still be on the BBC. I'd watch, would you watch Sally on the one show every night? Oh my goodness, all day long. Thank you, Sally, former BBC presenter, and quite concerned that actually the institution perhaps can't change unless you had strong leadership, and her suggestion is don't hold your breath for that to come. Are you an alarm clock Brit? Do you get up in the morning and do you put in more than you take out, and do you have the work ethic? Steve has got a voice note on this. Take a listen.
Morning, Mark and Peter. It's Steve from Bassetlaw. Our Chancellor, or probably more aptly described as Chancellor, Rachel Reeves. She said in that clip that you just played that she tried to wipe the slate clean and fix the foundations, but the very use of the word tried means she's failed. Because you can't try and succeed, because you just succeed. If you try, you fail. So she's failed. Cheers.
Steve, that is brilliantly put. The psychology that you've deployed there is spot on. And, you know, we've got this double speak now where she talks about growing the economy while she shrinks it. She talks about stabilising the foundations whilst the foundations are rocked to their core. Make it make sense. Are you an alarm clock Brit at 7:33 in the morning on Morning Glory? This is from a lovely chap that calls himself Skint Eastwood from Swindon. Good morning, Mark. I am an alarm clock Brit. I wake up every morning at around 3:30 a.m. and proceed to deliver to hospitals up into the north of England. Most days, I'm lucky to get home by 2:30 p.m. But then I need to go back to work at 5 p.m. for an hour every day to collect next day's goods. I would say I'm on reasonable money, but after all my bills and payouts every month, I'm left with less expendable income than the average family on benefits in my area. Every month, my expendable income just seems to get less and less and less, and I'm worried for the future. Skint Eastwood from Swindon. My heart breaks out to you, goes out to you there, because it's just horrible what you're going through. You work so hard. You get up 3:30. You're waking up in the middle of the night and you're putting in a shift and still you're struggling. I'm not sure we have capitalism now. Is this capitalism? I don't think it is. I don't know what the hell this is, but it's not working. More next.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
36 minutes past 7. It's Morning Glory. Mark Dolan with you till 10 o'clock. Before now and then, Anne Widdecombe live on the show, reacting to a growing scandal. The chairman of the Conservative Party posting an image of the Reform UK logo on a potential new piece of merchandise, I think a badge, comparing that to a Nazi badge. Why is he still in post? I'll get reaction from Anne Widdecombe, and it's the topic of today's Dolan's Dispatch. The Tories are in denial, in disarray, and in decline. It's over. No, the fat lady hasn't just sung, she's in a cab on her way home. Kevin, after the budget, Reeves won't be Chancellor for 2 weeks, let alone 2 years. Good morning, Mark. I'm glad Starmer has done something good and killed off the 6-7 trend among young people. Now he's got himself involved. It's no longer cool, so my kids can move on. Hooray for that, says Dan. Paul in Crewe, good morning. On the budget, I want Reeves to sort out the personal tax thresholds. The freezing of these is what is strangling the economy, causing above-inflation pay rises and stopping people from having the decent disposable income that they work hard for. Savings should be the aim, cutting the size of government and at least freezing benefit payments for the next 5 years. Paul in Crewe, great policies there. Freeze benefits for 5 years, encourage people to save and cut the size of government. Paul for Prime Minister. Well done, Paul. That's excellent. We've got more on this. Let's have a look. We've got to get to more of... oh, yeah, we were talking about shoplifters earlier. Colin in Colindale. In the absence of arresting shoplifters, why not install a large digital billboard for every high street and show mugshots of recent shoplifters caught on camera? Let's get more now on the growing row around Reform UK. Nigel Farage stands accused of racism as a teenager. This is a voice note from Pedro.
Good morning, Mark. Pedro from Hearts. Regarding the Tory party's chairman's statement, 5 words. Another nail in the Tory coffin. Ho, ho, ho. Merry Christmas.
Absolutely brilliant stuff. Thank you for that, Pedro. Really enjoyed your voice note. Amanda, Mark, can't these juvenile, pathetic people who insult Nigel Farage see that the British people retain their sense of fair play and the insults will backfire? Steve, Mark, on the Reform badge. You know, if those new badges aren't in production, then they should be. From the comments posted by the Tory, it makes me more determined to go and buy one. I'm fed up to the hind teeth of these lefty tropes. They don't understand what a fascist is. Well, I agree, Steve. It's a great insult to the memory of those who did suffer in the Second World War. Is there a peace deal in the offing in Ukraine? Martin Whittock is one of the country's most published historians and authors. He joins me now. Good morning, Martin.
Good morning.
Lovely to have you on the show. Has Donald Trump demonstrated the art of the deal in these negotiations?
Well, that's a very good question. I mean, obviously, over the weekend, a lot of people were very, very concerned, and still are, about the proposal coming from the USA, because it seemed to deliver everything that Vladimir Putin wanted. Basically, the keeping of Luhansk province, the Ukrainians giving up areas of Donetsk province that they still hold to him, and the Russians holding on to Zaporizhia and Kherson, and all these other demands on Ukraine with regard to NATO and so on and so forth. Now, to some extent, of course, Putin thinks that he has moderated his position, because at one point they were demanding that the Ukrainians have no more than an 85,000 army. Now they talk about 600,000. He's accepting the fact that the Russian money that's frozen in the international banking system will be used for the rebuilding of Ukraine, and he's not actually demanding regime change in Kyiv, although, of course, the Ukrainians have not been able to hold general elections because their constitution says they can't do it during a war, and who is he to tell another sovereign state what to do? So clearly at the weekend it looked like he was thinking he was being terribly flexible, and the Ukrainians were having to give, and many of us were very, very, very concerned about that. Now, what's interesting is that since then there have been meetings between the Ukrainians and the Americans in Vienna, and today there are negotiations timetable between the Russians and the Americans in Abu Dhabi. And Ukraine is now saying that they're seeing shifts and movement within that position, within those so-called peace proposals, largely because of the pushback by the Europeans, including by the UK very, very strongly, against those original proposals. So what we don't know at the moment is where that pushback has actually had an effect. So has there been a moderation to some of these demands? Because clearly over the weekend it looked like everything that Putin would wanted. I mean, originally, obviously, he wanted regime change in Kyiv and he wanted to control Kyiv entirely. But since then, that's proved impossible. It looked like he was getting everything that he wanted in Plan B, as it were. Well, now the Ukrainians are saying there has been some shift in this, and Trump's saying, oh, these are not necessarily the definitive peace plans. But what we don't know now is, to what extent have some of those changes actually impacted upon how this structure might emerge as a peace plan. So the jury's still out at the moment on how this is actually going to impact on Ukraine, but we will certainly know, I suspect, within the next 48 hours.
Most definitely. And the reason why I wanted to talk about this morning is it's a massive story. Obviously, a peace deal could be in the offing in the days ahead. It matters to my viewers and listeners, doesn't it, Martin? Because if this war ends, then you will likely see a downward correction in the cost of wholesale gas prices. Similarly, there'll be a boost for the world economy, which will support growth here in the UK. Plus, of course, it would be, most importantly, an end to the killing. But does Donald Trump, I know you're not his greatest cheerleader, Martin, but does he deserve credit for putting a tiger in the tank regarding this war?
Well, there's no doubt that under President Biden, although the words were very positive towards Ukraine, Ukraine was never given the kind of level of support that it could actually win the war or actually stop the Russians entirely. And at the moment, Ukraine is losing slowly, courageously, at an extraordinary loss, and has actually inflicted terrible losses on the Russians. Up to 1 million people have been wounded or killed. So the Ukrainians have had an extraordinary resistance, but obviously it can't go on like this. On the other hand, of course, the Russian economy can't go on like this either. So it is absolutely necessary, and Trump is right to say that action is needed. Action needed to stop this. The problem is at what price? And that's the real issue, because the temptation is to think, well, it's a long, long way away. Obviously, we're outraged at what's happened to Ukrainians. It's a long, long way away. But that's a false way of viewing it, because these things have an effect on the real world in which we live in the West, as well as the real world in which people are living in the East. People said in 1938, when Hitler had concessions over Czechoslovakia, it's a faraway country of a quarrel in a faraway country between people of whom we know nothing. And that, we've seen that's very dangerous, that these kind of things may seem a long way away, but they have a way of coming home to biting us, as we saw in 1939. Now, we're not in the same situation as that now. I do not think for a moment Putin's about to roll westward into Europe. The Russian economy has been really degraded. But he has the capability and the facility and perhaps the inclination to cause considerable problems to NATO members. We've seen, for example, Russian spy ships in the North Sea, probably tracking our data cables under the North Sea and into the English Channel. Now, the Russians still have a capability to cause real problems. And so if he comes out of this thinking that it's possible to gain from aggression, then that could well have continued aggression, not just against Ukraine, but against the Baltic states, against Poland, and of course we are NATO members with them, and ultimately against this country. So it's absolutely crucial that this war ends, but it must end in a way that doesn't encourage further aggression by the Russians. But yes, it must end for the good of the Ukrainian people and obviously for the good of the world community as a whole. But it mustn't reward the aggression. And that's the real tension at the moment. How do you do one without the other?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's worth my viewers and listeners knowing that this war has cost the UK probably £100 billion. And I say that because, don't forget, it was Liz Truss who had to subsidise our energy bills when she was Prime Minister. That was around 30 or 40 billion. And if you just look at the extra cost on everyone's energy bills, you're probably looking at, you know, the sharp end of 100 billion. Martin, you are a revered historian, one of the most published, if not the most published historian in the country. How will history judge Trump if peace is achieved?
I think history will judge Trump more favourably if peace is achieved. It was failed to be achieved under Biden. But if the long-term results of it is that Vladimir Putin is empowered to cause problems elsewhere, then the judgment will be far more nuanced and far more mixed. It's the detail, and the implications of that for the future. This terrible war must end, but it mustn't be ended in a way that encourages the aggressor to continue to cause aggression in Europe, which will have continued effects upon our viewers this morning and listeners this morning, as much as obviously the war has done hitherto for. Basically, wars cost terrible amounts in blood and treasure, but sometimes allowing the aggressor to go further can cause even more investment of blood and treasure in the future. And it's trying to stop one, but also stop the other, that is the real challenge at the moment.
I think, Martin, you should have a history show. The clock's against us, but can I ask you what your latest book is at the moment? Because it might be the perfect stocking filler for a history fan.
Yes, I've just published a book called Vikings in the East, From Vladimir the Great to Vladimir Putin, The Origins of a Contested Legacy in Russia and Ukraine. in which I explore the over 1,000-year-old roots of the conflict in Ukraine. Vikings in the East, published by Bikeback Publishers of London. Vikings in the East, from Vladimir the Great to Vladimir Putin, the origins of a contested legacy in Russia and Ukraine. It's got Vikings in it, it's got Putin in it, it's got the modern world in it. Well, it's all in one book. Well, quite a lot of things are in one book anyway.
Count me in. There you go. Martin Whittock, well worth a read, and a brilliant historian, and a guy that I think you'll agree has brought that complicated conflict to life a little bit and helped to deconstruct the whole thing. It would be very good news for us if that war ends, not of course, to mention the Ukrainians as well. Martin Whittock, thank you so much for that. Are you an alarm clock listener? Tim says, good morning, Mark. It's not just van drivers that get up at 5:30 every morning. I am a company director and we employ over 400 people, so have a huge responsibility to all of our colleagues. Tim, thank you so much for that. I wish we had a government that understood that businesses are a public good, that they are so valuable, that they employ, that they invest, that they pay their taxes, that they innovate, and they provide a product to the British consumer. Faye in Birmingham, good morning, Mark. Currently sat here getting ready to drop my daughter to the childminder, currently off sick with stress and anxiety, as my father-in-law has moved in with us. He is 77 years old, has worked his entire life. Never ever has he claimed a benefit in this country. He needs a mental health assessment, as we need a diagnosis so we can get the care that he needs in place and so that I can go back to work. Apparently there is a 6-month wait for a mental health assessment. Faye goes on to say, this country is a joke, and if I could move away tomorrow, I would. My husband runs a small company with 7 staff. He's owed £35,000 since April. He needs a new work van and a new work car. Why should we scrimp and save when he's owed money from the government and they will not pay him? This country is a joke. Faye in Birmingham, thank you for that. And I'm really, really sorry for what you and your husband are going through, and your father-in-law as well. It's just unfair and it is so wrong. Faye, thank you for sharing that. I've got no doubt that my fellow listeners and viewers to this show, our hearts go out to you collectively in thinking of this morning as life gets harder, not easier. What did Starmer say? I'll make life easier for ordinary working Brits. This is a voice note from Gaz, who is another alarm clock Brit.
Morning, mate. I'm one of the alarm clock people. I get up at anywhere between 4:30 and 5:30. I go to the gym to keep myself healthy so that I'm not a strain on the NHS. I then end up going to my rather well-paid job, where I get taxed to death in the car that I drive. I get taxed to death on the fuel that I put in. I get taxed to death on the food that I eat through the day. I get taxed to death every single way that the government possibly can. I'm looking at buying a house. I'm going to get absolutely caned with stamp duty and all the other taxes that go with moving house. And now I'm going to be paying more tax towards people who are sat on the backsides doing nothing and earning a living for doing absolutely diddly squat. And sometimes I just wonder, what the hell am I bothering for?
And that is the biggest problem of all. That last line is so damning. Gaz, I salute you. I recognise what you do, and I can see what a challenge it is. And the messaging from the government is, why bother when you can sit at home on your backside watching Sky and guzzling ready meals? It's not right. Gaz, thank you for that. Let me say, on a positive note, at 51 minutes past 7 in the morning on a Tuesday, that change is coming. Bring popcorn. Folks, lots more to get through. Are you a Nazi if you support Reform UK? That's next.
In terms of your question around taxes, there are no additional tax rises needed beyond the ones that I've set out. Don't need to increase taxes.
I'm not coming back with more borrowing or more taxes.
I will not increase your national insurance. I will not increase your VAT, and I will not increase your income tax. We don't need to come back for more. We've done that now. We've wiped the slate clean. The economic circumstances have declined, deteriorated since a year ago. We are having to look at taxes and spending.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
7:54. This is Morning Glory. Mark Dolan with you until 10 a.m. Coming up, Anne Widdecombe on the Reform UK Nazi badge row. That is the topic of today's Dolan's Dispatch at 9 a.m. The Tories are in freefall and in denial. It is over. Are you an alarm clock Brit, someone that gets up in the morning, puts a shift in and contributes more than you take out? Joe is in Bournemouth. Good morning, Mark. I used to be an alarm clock Brit, but now I tend to wake up before my alarm, worrying about finances. I would actually love to get back to being an alarm clock Brit. Never going to happen whilst these morons are in power. That's Joe in Bournemouth. Joe, thank you so much for that text, and I totally hear where you're coming from. Let's get reaction to the big political stories of the day from the deputy political editor at the Sun newspaper, Ryan Saby. Good morning, Ryan.
Good morning, Mark. How are you?
I'm very well. I know the Sun newspaper, right, always tries to be cheerful and positive, but it's hard to be today, isn't it, on the eve of the budget. My viewers and listeners, they are struggling, and many of them think, given the levels of taxation and the high inflation which erodes their wages, that they're not sure what is the point of being an alarm clock Brit.
Yeah, no, it's difficult. People work hard all year round, you know, particularly difficult this time of year, nights drawing in and that kind of thing. I think that's why you're going to have to. We're going to be looking to Rachel Reeves tomorrow for maybe a little bit of help. But all the signs so far suggest it's going to be a very, very difficult budget. Now, the Chancellor was speaking to Labour MPs last night, and one thing that she did talk about was the cost of living crisis. The cost of living is one of those three things that she's pointed to when it comes to tomorrow's budget, trying to get the national debt down, trying to sort of help the NHS. Also, in cost of living, she's done a couple of things so far, such as freeze prescription freezes and rail fares for next year. And she actually says there is more that she will actually do. So I know people are finding it tough, and it's perhaps not going to make much of a difference, but there will be a few things in the budget that might help. And I think with energy bills, they've been going up for a long time. They went up the energy cap went up last week. It's expected to go up in March, April as well. But I think that the energy bills, they'll try and bring VAT off those bills themselves. So look, it's going to be a very, very tough budget for lots of people. She said those with the broadest shoulders should actually carry a lot of the weight for this. But she's also said that everybody's got to do their bit. So it's going to be a tough day.
Ryan, who wrote the budget that we're going to hear tomorrow? Rachel Reeves or Labour backbenchers?
I think it's a very good question, that, Mark. I think one of the things that she's beholden to is Labour backbenchers. Now, she's spoken a lot over the last past few months about how she wants to bring down that welfare bill. Now, she is absolutely beholden to those Labour MPs. They tried to get through £5 billion worth of savings over the summer, and that absolutely failed. They didn't even go ahead with the vote. And linked to welfare, big part of her plans will be the scrapping of the two-child benefit cap. Now, that was one issue that Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves didn't even want to touch during that election campaign, and even up to just a few months ago. But as that political pressure and that political heat was turned up on those two in Downing Street. They really felt they had no choice. Now, they are going to be raising taxes to pay for that. But the question is, it's going to be hardworking people, pay their taxes to who are going to foot that bill. The fact they can't bring down that welfare bill, getting out of control, and I think that's where there'll be a little bit of despondency. I say a little bit of despondency. There will be lots of despondency. It's a lot of tax to spend, but not much savings.
Briefly, before we let you go, Ryan, your reaction to the publishing of a post on X on Sunday night of the Tory party chairman, Kevin Hollinrake, comparing a badge of Reform UK, a new logo, and a Nazi badge. Misjudgment, sackable offence? What do you think?
Yeah, I don't think Kevin Hollinrake is going to be sacked over this. I was with Kemi Badenoch yesterday at the CBI conference, and she tried to brush this away and play it down. So he won't be sacked. It was, it looks on, it was, totally the wrong thing to do. And Nigel Farage obviously spoke out against this yesterday, saying it puts his safety at risk. But and Suella Braverman, former Home Secretary, also spoke out about that. So Kevin Hollinrake, he keeps his job. Kemi Badenoch sticking by him.
Ryan, a real treat to have you on the show. Lovely to meet you. I hope you'll join us again in the near future. Ryan Saby is the Deputy Political Editor of The Sun, which, of course, is absolutely brilliant for politics analysis and politics exclusives. So much more to come. Are you an alarm clock Brit? I want to hear from you. 0344 499 1000. Give me a voice note, send me a text. And here's a simple question for you. Are Reform UK supporters Nazis? We'll do that next.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Top of the morning to you. It is coming up to 3 minutes past 8. Mark Dolan on Morning Glory. Lovely to have your company. Breaking news this morning. The chairman of the Conservative Party under pressure to resign over a joke post on X comparing Reform UK to Adolf Hitler's Nazi Party. It's a crisis that threatens to engulf the Tory party, having sparked huge anger among Reform UK supporters, with Nigel Farage said to be furious at the comparison. Should he go? Meanwhile, the BBC in disarray over bias claims as the corporation's chairman refuses to back down in the Donald Trump censored speech row. And as Rachel prepares her accounts for the year in a hotly anticipated and universally feared budget, Sir Keir Starmer and David Lammy will escape the proposed mansion tax, whilst other wealth creators are taken to the cleaners. Isn't that convenient? And this morning, I'm asking you, are you an alarm clock Brit? Are you someone that gets up early in the morning, puts a shift in, pays your taxes, contributes more than you take out? Because I've got your back this morning. It looks like you are in the firing line in tomorrow's budget. So tell me about your work situation. Tell me about your bills. Tell me about your finances, your debt, and how hard you work for diminishing returns. It's your stories on Morning Glory. 0344 499 1000 is my phone number. And you can text the word talk in your message to 87222 or send me a voice note and let's talk. Now, Nigel Farage has responded to allegations that he made racist remarks as a teenager at school. This is a Guardian story. Well, let's hear Nigel Farage's response to those allegations that as a child he made racist comments.
At school, categorically on the record, you did not racially abuse fellow people.
I would never, ever do it in a hurtful or insulting way.
That's not quite the same as not doing it.
It's 49 years ago. It's 49 years ago.
What difference does it? What difference to the time make?
Isn't it? Well, I just entered my teens. Can I remember everything that happened at school? No, I can't. Have I ever been part of an extremist organisation or engaged in direct, unpleasant personal abuse, genuine abuse, on that basis? No.
You're not quite... That's very, very caveated. You're not quite ruling this out. The question is, did you ever racially abuse fellow pupils in school?
No.
You've caveated it with a hurtful way.
Not with intent.
What do you mean not with intent? I don't understand what you mean by not with intent. What does that mean?
You wouldn't do.
But what does that mean?
No.
No what?
No. I have never directly really tried to go and hurt.
This from Russ, who's messaged the show. Good morning, Russ. Thank you for your message. He says, Mark, if you go back 45 years, I think that everyone would have said something that would be considered hate speech today. Talk about barrel scraping. Pathetic, says Russ. This is a voice note. Daniel on Farage's alleged school comments. Take it away, Daniel.
Good morning, Mark. It's Daniel from Epsom here. The establishment, the blob, the ConLab Uniparty are really starting to panic now. They're starting to get scared. They're getting desperate. Someone might have said something that was a bit untoward 50 years ago when they were at school. I'll let you into a little secret, Mark. I grew up in London in the 70s and 80s, and everybody, and I mean everybody, used terms commonly on a daily basis that you probably wouldn't use today, okay? And this is everybody. So they're hoping that if they throw enough, you know what, it'll stick. But it won't stick. The British majority have had enough, Mark. We're all going to vote reform. There's nothing they can do.
Let's get reaction now from the chief political writer at Spiked Online and the author of After the Pogrom, 7th of October, Israel and the Crisis of Civilization, Brendan O'Neill. Good morning, Brendan.
Hi, Mark. How's it going?
Very well. Really good to see you again. Long time no speak. Does it matter what Nigel Farage said in the playground 49 years ago?
Absolutely not. I can't believe he's even responding to this controversy. It is pathetic and ridiculous. The Guardian is really scraping the bottom of the barrel with these so-called revelations. You know, some of this stuff goes back to when he was 13 years old. I'm sorry, but haranguing a man who's in his early 60s over things he said when he was 13 is absolutely bizarre. In fact, it's quite medieval. It's like the public shaming of a child, something that a child said many, many decades ago. You know, I agree with your caller. In the 70s and 80s, you know, regretfully, there was a lot of so-called racist banter on school playgrounds. There was a lot of things that were said that shouldn't have been said. There was a lot of commentary that you would never get away with now, and that's a good thing. Schools have improved as a result. But we can't hold modern-day Nigel Farage, who is clearly not a racist guy, we can't hold him to what he said, you know, back in the 1970s. That is ridiculous. It's desperation on the part of the anti-Farage lobby. They are really starting to panic that he's going to do well in the election, that he might even take power, who knows, and they're doing everything they can to bring him down. I think it's scandalous.
Most definitely, and those people will be silenced when we see the scale of the multi-ethnic support for Reform UK at the next election. This is not a party that appeals only to white Indigenous Brits, Brendan. Lots of rather conservative British Asians and others love Nigel Farage. Brendan, what about the chairman of the Conservative Party, Kevin Hollinrake, who has posted an image of a Nazi badge comparing it to a new logo for Reform UK on their merchandise? What does this tell us about the Conservative Party in 2025?
I think it tells us that the Tories are panicking as well. You know, you expect this kind of low blow from the left, from the Labour Party, from radical leftists on the internet who think everyone is a fascist. You know, they're always calling Nigel Farage the new Hitler. They're always saying that Reform is like the Nazi Party because they are historically illiterate idiots who don't know what the truth of the past was. And they just use that slur to try and undermine Farage. But for someone in the Tory party to do it, I think is really bad. It's a terrible, terrible look. And Kemi Badenoch is standing by this, the Tory party chairman, and saying it's fine what he did. I think she needs to rethink that. I know that the Tory party is panicking about the rise of Reform, and they're worried that Reform is going to take a lot of their vote, which they are, by the way. But I don't think this is a good look for the Conservatives to be launching these kind of low blows against a party, an opposing party. They really need to take this back. They need to walk it back. We should stop relativizing the past by using the slur Nazi against people we don't like today. That is cheap politics unbecoming of the Conservative Party.
Indeed, and in fact, it comes from the radical leftist playbook, but now being perpetrated by so-called conservatives.
Yeah, they're borrowing the nasty tricks from the left. You know, this is a tactic of the radical left. They call everyone a fascist. If you are worried about mass immigration, you're a fascist. If you voted for Brexit, you're a fascist. They compare everything to the 1930s, except interestingly, Hamas's attack on Israel. They don't compare that to the 1930s, but everything else they think is just like fascism. It's something that the left has been doing for years and years. And for the Conservative Party to borrow that trick and to use it against Nigel Farage, that raises a huge question mark over the Tories. You know, that might that might warm them to some of their kind of old home county supporters who are wary of populism, wary of Nigel Farage, but it will really make them look bad in the eyes of some of those voters they're due to lose. They're not going to win back their voters by playing these kinds of tricks, and in fact they might lose more of them. So I think this is a really bad move by the Conservatives.
Thank you, Brendan. Brendan O'Neill is the formidable chief political writer at Spiked Online, always worth a read, and the author of After the Pogrom, 7th of October, Israel and the Crisis of Civilization. Have a good Tuesday. Brendan will catch up soon. Debbie says, so Farage said something racist at school, did he? Well, Keir Starmer said that women can have a penis. David Lammy said women can grow a cervix. Sorry, men, I think you mean men. Lammy said men can grow a cervix. And Rayner called Tories scum. Labour collectively call us far-right thugs. And they've said all of those things, those outrageous comments, in their adulthood. Brilliant point, Debbie. Keep those opinions coming. Are you an alarm clock Brit? I want your stories. 0344 499 1000. Do you contribute more than you take out? Next up, Tory grandee James Cleverly. Should his chairman go? That's next.
In terms of your question around taxes, there are no additional tax rises needed beyond the ones that I've set out. Don't need to increase taxes.
I'm not coming back with more borrowing or more taxes.
I will not increase your national insurance. I will not increase your VAT, and I will not increase your income tax. We don't need to come back for more. We've done that now. We've wiped the slate clean. The economic circumstances have declined, deteriorated since a year ago. We are having to look at taxes and spending.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
14 minutes past 8, this is Morning Glory. A very big couple of hours to come. Anne Widdecombe waiting in the wings to discuss the Reform Tory Nazi row. And that's the topic of today's Dolan's Dispatch in just 45 minutes' time at 9 a.m. Are you an alarm clock Brit? Are you someone that gets up in the morning, puts a shift in, contributes more than you take out? And are you feeling hammered at the moment by this government? Well, Phil says, good morning, Mark. Great show. I'm in Coventry. I'm an alarm clock worker myself. I have been since 1980. And here's where I am. I've worked hard all my adult life to own my own house, to put some savings away for my older age, only for this government to try and take it all away and give it to people who haven't contributed, who do not belong here. I regard them all as traitors. Our ancestors are turning in their graves. And Mark, Dave, I'll get to Dave's text in a minute. He's another alarm clock Brit who gets up at 4 in the morning, only to be clobbered by Rachel from accounts. Let's get reaction now from the Shadow Secretary of State for Levelling Up, Housing and Communities, James Cleverly. Good morning, Mr. Cleverly. Thank you for joining us on Morning Glory.
Good morning, good morning.
How different would a Conservative budget look tomorrow?
Well, the first thing that we have got to recognise is the government is taxing too much because they're spending too much. And just as you said in your introduction, they are making choices about where they're spending, and they are choosing to spend more money on a bloated welfare bill rather than reining in some of that public spending so they can reduce the taxes on hard-working people. That is a political choice, and it's the wrong choice. So as Conservatives, we've identified £45 billion worth of savings. Half of those savings would be to reduce the deficit, so we're not paying so much in repayments for government borrowing. And the other half would be on tax reductions to boost the economy, get people into work, get businesses investing, get the British economy back on its feet.
Well, of course, that's what the country needs. It's not going to happen tomorrow, is it? What would you say to my viewers and listeners who are starting to feel, Mr. Cleverly, like there's really no point setting their alarm and getting up and going to work?
Well, this is the problem. The Labour front bench attempted to make a tiny, minuscule reduction in the welfare budget, and they got bullied by their own backbenchers into dropping those proposals. So they are going to tax working people so they can subsidise people who should be at work but aren't at work. And funnily enough, the other people who really suffer in this system are the people who genuinely need help and support, because they're the budget that is destined for them is being diluted by people who could work and should work and are choosing not to work. And that's just not fair. That's just not fair on anybody.
The economic cycle is, however, very slow, whether it's tax rises, inflation, that kind of thing, Mr. Cleverly. It doesn't happen, does it, from one day to the next? Labour have been in power since July of last year. How much of what my viewers and listeners are going through, inflation, the massive government debt, the cost of borrowing, raised unemployment, how much of that is a legacy of your time in office?
Well, the government's been in place now for well over a year, coming up to well over a year and a half. And last year, Rachel Reeves said, "Oh, this tax grab is a one-off, and I've solved the problem." And she literally said, "Anything else now?" She said this last year. "Anything else, that's on her." So she has basically said that whatever she says tomorrow is down to her. Now, of course, as Conservatives, we had to initially deal with the gross overspending that we inherited from the last Labour government. We had to deal with the cost of the pandemic and the support for the whole country during the pandemic era, and of course the global inflation shock that came after Russia's brutal invasion of Ukraine. So we had to deal with some really difficult stuff, and that put us all in a really difficult place. But the job of the Labour government, this was their promise, where they were going to make things better, and they haven't. They've made things worse. So inflation is higher than they inherited from us. Unemployment is higher than they inherited from us. Borrowing is higher than they inherited from us. Taxes are higher than they inherited from us. And this is down to them. It's decisions that Rachel Reeves made last year that is the reason that entrepreneurs are leaving the country, that youth unemployment is going through the roof, and the British economy is really struggling.
Now, Mr. Cleverly, your chairman on Sunday night posted an image of the new Reform logo, which I believe will be on some kind of badge merchandise, comparing it to a Nazi badge. Why is he still in post?
Well, look, that was a decision Kevin made, and it's not necessarily whether I agree with it or otherwise, but I think he was...
Surely you don't agree with
I think he was trying to make... Well, look, it's not what I would have done, but the point is that he was drawing attention to I think, legitimate questions about some of the things that have been said by members of the Reform Party, including Nathan Gill, Reform's former leader in Wales, who's now been incarcerated for corruption charges, taking bribes.
What is the connection between Nathan...
Kremlin?
What's the connection between Nathan Gill and his egregious crimes and Hitler's Germany?
Well, look, as I say, that's not the metaphor that I would have used, but I know that Kevin was trying to draw attention to, I think, some very, very distasteful comments, some very, very inappropriate loyalties within Reform, and more importantly, Nigel Farage's failure to grip these things. I mean, yesterday he was being interviewed in Wales, and when asked, are you going to get a grip? Are you going to investigate some of the things that are being said by people within his own party? He basically said that, oh, I'm not the police, implying that somehow it wasn't his problem. He's the leader of a party, and party leaders must take responsibility for the things that are said by members of that party, and he's refusing to do so.
But I don't think, Mr. Cleverly, with the greatest respect in the world, you can conflate this link between the former leader of Reform in Wales and the Kremlin and comparing the general Reform project to that of Adolf Hitler. I mean, I'm surprised that you're in any way defending the post. I mean, surely it's an open shut case of it was offensive, it was wrong, it should have been deleted, and Hollinrake should be receiving his P45.
Well, look, as I say, that's not the metaphor that I would have chosen. But as I say, the point is that the leader of Reform needs to take responsibility for his own political party. That's the point.
And what about that political party which is so ahead in the polls at the moment? You know, why are former Conservative supporters, many of whom listen to and watch this show, Mr. Cleverly, why have they flocked to Nigel Farage and left the Conservative Party?
Well, look, there of course is frustrations when you lose office, when you're voted out of office. You've got to ask yourself some difficult questions about what you did wrong, and we have gone through that, and what you're going to do differently. Reform, of course, just like Zach Polanski with the Greens, are offering superficially seductive answers, very simplistic answers to complicated challenges. Reform and the Greens are both promising basically the same thing, which is massive increases in public spending, nationalisation of industry, and somehow someone else will pay the tax bill for that. And then both the Greens and Reform are selling a completely false prospectus, and And that is appealing. I mean, there's no point in pretending otherwise. The promise of free stuff paid for by someone else is always going to be appealing, but it's totally undeliverable. And it's only the Conservative Party that is being honest with the British people to say, in order to reduce taxes, you have to reduce spending. We've identified £45 billion worth of savings, which will be split between tax reductions and reducing the deficit, so we're not paying so much on government.
Why didn't we get those savings?
Credible plans, and no one else is doing that.
Why didn't we get those savings from 2010 and beyond? Why do we get them now after the fact? Why have we binned net zero when it was inflicted on us by Theresa May? Why are we going to tackle wokery in our institutions even though it proliferated under Conservative rule? Why are we going to close the border when it didn't happen for 14 years?
We were working all those things. You've got to remember that, you know, two once-in-a-lifetime events happened back to back. So we had the global pandemic, which affected the whole world and affected us particularly. And of course, we had the impact of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Two once-in-a-lifetime events. And they distorted things. They changed things enormously. And we were responding to those things. We were tackling issues of illegal migration. Figures which, look, this is not easy, and I was Home Secretary. These are not easy things, but since taking office, the number of illegal small boat arrivals has gone through the roof, the highest numbers on record. That is because Labour were set about undoing the things that we put in place. We were setting about reducing the welfare bill. Mel Stride had a plan to reduce the welfare bill. Labour have reversed that. We had a plan to increase our business base, to get more people back into work, more people back into business. Rachel Reeves is taxing people out of business. We had a plan to recruit entrepreneurs and get those investors to come to the UK. Under Starmer's government, we are seeing record departures of entrepreneurs, of investors, of business people, of talented people. So we had a really difficult set of circumstances, and we were working on them. Labour, frankly, have messed up beyond belief, and they're going to make it worse tomorrow.
I can't disagree with you. Mr. Cleverly, we've very much enjoyed your company on Morning Glory this morning. Thank you for your candour and your thoughts. Before we let you go, does it matter what Nigel Farage said in the school playground 49 years ago?
No, look, all children say daft things. It's part of being a kid, it's part of growing up. So I'm less worried about what Nigel Farage said when he was as a teenager. I'm more interested in what he says as an adult. And what he says as an adult is undeliverable nonsense. It's snake oil. It's a promise he can't deliver. And he, just as we're seeing in Kent, just as we're seeing in Lincolnshire, just as we're seeing where people under the Reform banner are getting elected, they let the voters down. That is much more important than things he might have said as a teenager. A
delight to have you on the programme. Thank you so much, Mr. Cleverly. James Cleverly is the Shadow Secretary of State for Levelling Up, Housing and Communities. Your reaction, 03444991000. So many people are dreading this budget. It was an amazing question earlier that I put out, which is, are you an alarm clock Brit? Well, one of my listeners said, no, I'm not an alarm clock Brit. I actually wake up before the alarm because of the stress of all of my bills and outgoings. Dave says, good morning, Mark. I'm an alarm clock. I'm Alarm Clock Dave. Welcome, Alarm Clock Dave, here in Leicestershire. 4:30, I'm on the road, delivering in all weathers, minimum wage, and just managed to pay my way. Very little left. I'm sick and tired of this government wasting our money on illegals, hotels, etc. They have no idea what the hardworking people of this once great country are feeling. Are they blind or just plain stupid? Let's get Labour out before I fear it's too late. Great show, Mark, says Dave. Are they blind or are they stupid? No, do you know what I think it is, Dave? I think that they don't care. And I think that they're blinded by ideology because they're attached to the idea of socialism, which involves making everyone poorer. Let's get a voice note from Izzy on the budget. Good morning, Izzy. Take it away.
Morning, Mark. Izzy from Kent here. Love listening to you. I'm so glad to hear you back on Talk Radio. do you know what, Mark? It's all about fairness. Fairness, that's the bottom line. Myself and my husband both grew up on council estates, both worked really hard. On paper, like one of your other callers said, it looks like we're doing okay, but we're not. And when they talk about inflation, when I go to the shop, I feel like my shopping's doubled in price. I'm looking at my boiler thinking, oh, I better turn that down a notch. My husband was up at 4 this morning to get on a train to London. All right, he doesn't go every day, but he goes about 3 days a week, 2 hours there, 2 hours back. I'm on 0 hours contracts. We're both in our early 60s. But I actually, the 0 hours contract suits me, but I'm probably not going to have that much longer. I don't know. It's fairness. What we worked hard. We got a little bit of savings. We get for our retirement. But I think they're coming at us from all angles, and it's scary. It is just scary. Thanks, Mark. I think I already said, but it's Izzy from Kent. Bye.
Izzy, brilliant voice note. Thank you so much for your kind comments. It's an honour to be back on the home of common sense, and thank you for having me. And listen, everything you said, scary is very true. There was a viral clip, Izzy, just a few days ago on TikTok, and it was an investor who said that actually Britain was a scary place now for an investor. Scary, just like the word you used. And that she said that South Africa, right, which is ridden with crime and conflict, is actually a better investment than the UK. Can you imagine how the mighty have fallen? Thank you for that, Izzy. And you speak for many of my viewers and listeners in those remarks. How do we solve this problem? What are you going to do? Are you an alarm clock Brit? More on this next.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
.32, it is Morning Glory. Mark Dolan with you until 10 a.m. in just half an hour's time. It is Dolan's Dispatch, and I'll be dealing with the chairman of the Conservative Party, Kevin Hollinrake, who in a jokey post on X has compared Reform UK to the Nazis. It's unforgivable, and it demonstrates a Tory party in denial and in free fall. That's Dolan's Dispatch in half an hour. You won't want to miss it, and we'll get live reaction off the back of it from former Government Minister Anne Widdecombe, who left the Tory party a few years ago because they have become so left-wing, and now they're indulging in the gutter politics of the radical left. My number is 03444991000. What about Nigel Farage? Does it matter what he said 49 years ago in the playground? Peter says, good morning, Mark. How pathetic looking for something Farage might have said in a playground 49 years ago. I'm 66. And I can't remember what I said 50 years ago. I'm sure I would have said something that I wouldn't say now. But those were completely different times. We were down to earth, and there was no such thing as woke. It was banter no more. Peter, I agree with you. And let me tell you, it was better days. Are you an alarm clock Brit? Dave in Devon says, good morning, Mark. I am an alarm clock Brit. And I'm an alarm clock 78-year-old pensioner. I still do casual work along with a lot of pensioners, and we pay tax on every penny we earn. Well, let's take a look ahead to the budget tomorrow. Much anticipated, widely feared. Let's get the thoughts of an entrepreneur in this country, someone that's trying to generate national income and do her bit for the country. It is Sarah Laker, who's the owner of Stationery Supplies. Excuse me, I put my teeth in. The owner of Stationery Supplies. Good morning, Sarah.
Good morning.
Lovely to have you on the show. Tell me about your business, Stationery Supplies.
So I'm an independent retail shop selling stationery, greetings cards and gifts. I've been in business for 20 years. I have two shops, one that's been around 20 years and one I started during COVID in 2020.
That's brilliant. And I've got to say, I love me some stationery. What do you sell?
We sell everything you could possibly want. Notebooks, pens, paper clips, you name it, we've got it.
And where are you based?
We're based in Marple and Wilmslow in Cheshire.
Very good. So tell me about the sort of trading environment now. Tell me about your costs and overheads, Sarah.
So our costs and overheads are just rising all the time. Since probably 2020, we've been on a steep rise, and our margins are being squeezed. We can't pass those costs directly onto our customers because then that would price us out of the market. So the actual bit that's left at the end of the day that's mine is getting smaller and smaller.
What does the message from government, what is the message from government when they have these budgets? How do you feel? What is the messaging from them? What are they saying to you as someone that's trying to be a wealth creator?
They're not supporting us at all. Really need to think about the tax increases, the minimum wage increases, the national insurance, the heating. We just need support. The high streets are struggling. We are surviving. We aren't growing. We are surviving.
Do you think, Sarah, do you think that governments, maybe this government in particular, have the wrong attitude towards business, thinking of it as maybe a bad thing, or you're all millionaires or something?
And to be honest, I don't really know what they are thinking. I feel like they need to support us more. I feel like they need to invest in the high street. We are the backbone of the communities. We support local events, we support local schools, we provide local jobs. Without local shops and businesses and hospitality within communities, our country would be a much poorer place.
Does it sometimes make you wonder, Sarah, why you yourself are an alarm clock Brit? You get up in the morning and work so hard, take that financial risk. Do you wonder sometimes whether it's worth it?
I do sometimes on my darkest days. I do, it's been a really poor day or another cost increase has hit us. I do feel like that, but I absolutely love independent retail. I'm so passionate about our high streets, about the communities around us, that I am absolutely determined that they're not going to beat me.
What's happening to the high street at the moment, for example, where you are in Cheshire?
Where we are, we're actually doing really well. We're thriving. Shops are opening and shops are surviving. But I think we're quite fortunate in that I speak to fellow retailers up and down the country who are just really struggling and are, months probably away from closing.
It's devastating, isn't it? And, when a business closes, it doesn't come back. And it's not just the bottom line. It's not a spreadsheet. This is about the human beings that are involved, isn't it? The people that have invested, that have lost their money, and the staff, Sarah, who lose their jobs.
It's exactly about that. And it's about the little old lady who that shopkeeper might be the only person she speaks to that day.
Yeah.
Far more reaching consequence than just a shop closing.
What would you like to hear from the Chancellor tomorrow?
I'd like to see some business support. I'd like to see a rates overview. I'd like to see that they're helping us with our heating costs and no tax raises.
Yes, because this is the issue we've got, is especially, small to medium-sized enterprises like yours. They are the lifeblood of our economy, Sarah. It's not all about, Google and Sainsbury's and all the big brands, is it?
No, not at all. When you come in our shops, you speak to an actual person. You're not self-service till. You're speaking to somebody with years of experience and knowledge within their speciality. It's an experience and something that, is getting rarer.
I've been really delighted to have you on the show, Sarah, because what you're talking about is the real world challenges of running a small business in this country. And I'm afraid to say I think that those governors do not inhabit that same real world. And if only the Chancellor was listening to your comments just now. Sarah, more power to you. Good luck at Stationery Supplies, which has 2 outlets. And when I'm in Cheshire, I'm going to pop in, buy myself a couple of rulers and a protractor. I will say I have a mild addiction to stationery. I love it. I love a felt tip pen. But anyway, Sarah, thank you. Thank you for joining us. I know you've got a busy day, so we'll let you crack on. Sarah Laker, owner of Stationery Supplies. If you're in the area, pop in and go and have a chat and buy yourself an eraser or something. Let's get now to... we'll stay on the budget, actually. This is a voice note from Pauline.
Good morning, Mark. Pauline from Salford. I'm up at 5 o'clock every morning. I do never less than 12 hours a day. I've got a cleaning and ironing business, and I also do a bit of buying and selling. So I sell online and I do local deliveries. Now, I've got to say, yes, I have a good standard of living, but I have customers that have never worked a day in their lives. They thrive on the fact that they have children for the hell of it. It doesn't care who the fathers are. Making all the benefits and then wear it as a badge of honour when they manage to get the kids diagnosed with ADHD and they can get more benefits. That's what annoys me. I don't have a problem in working hard. I've got principles and I've got standards and I've got a work ethic, and I can go to my bed and sleep easy. Have a great day.
Pauline, thank you for that. Have a great day as well. Putting the world to right, Pauline. I agree with every syllable of that. Keep those voice notes coming. Anne from Kent, as a small business owner, I'm terrified about the budget. My business cannot take any more pain. And personally, I've never felt so poor. If only we had Donald Trump running the economy with his pro-business, low-tax policy. What this brain-dead government doesn't get is if small businesses cannot afford to go on, that also means their employed staff lose their jobs. And you're so right. And what's happening to unemployment at the moment? It is going up, especially among young people, which is particularly devastating as they go about the beginning of their adult lives. Thank you for that, Anne. What about Nigel Farage? Does it matter what he said in the playground 49 years ago? Andrew joins us live on Morning Glory. He's in Hertfordshire. Good morning, Andrew.
Good morning.
We just lost him. Don't worry, he's not being cancelled. He's not being got at by the censors. So many people are absolutely puzzled by the fact that Nigel Farage has had to defend remarks he may or may not have made as a teenager almost 50 years ago. And let me see what you are all saying about that. Andy in Cornwall, Mark, I'm fed up of all parties slagging off other parties and always answering questions by saying what the others are doing. They should all talk and propose their own party proposal first and then explain how it is different to the others. Wouldn't that be nice? If only, Andy, we lived in that political universe. Lisa in Northern Ireland. Good morning, Lisa. Thank you for listening to Morning Glory. She says, good morning, Mark. Re Nigel's alleged remarks. You only have to think of the TV programmes that were on and the language that was used in sitcoms like Till Death Do Us Part, Love Thy Neighbour, and It Ain't Half Hot Mum, etc. When I was growing up in the 1970s, nobody batted an eyelid and everybody laughed at it. Lisa, you are so right. I think we've got a line back to Andrew in Hertfordshire. Good morning, Andrew.
Good morning, Mark. Lisa's point is very well made. And this is exactly what you do when you're trying to actually smear someone. They did it in the US with Washington when they suggested that he had a relationship with an animal. And Ashcroft did it with Cameron as well when he said in relation to the pig's head at Eton.
Yeah.
Nigel Farage is going to be the next Prime Minister. And it's only when they're doing these things that you realise how fearful they are of him. He shouldn't even answer this. It's impertinent that they'd ask it. The reality of this is, if you look at his life, he might have bought a copy of Playboy when he was a young man. Are we going to vilify him for that? It's pathetic. He's the next Prime Minister, and there's nothing they can do to stop it. And if you don't think he is, look at their behaviour, because every day you realise he's going to number 10.
It also shows, doesn't it, the politicians chasing this story, Andrew, that they don't care about our lives. Because if they wrote in The Guardian and other papers on behalf of the British public, or if they talked about it on TV and radio, then they would be quizzing Nigel Farage about his plans for the economy, his plans for the border, his plans for energy prices. It shows how trivial this is for the media elites.
Yeah, a very good point. If you look at the way this story came, it came from The Guardian, so straight away it gets on the digital platform of the BBC and broadcast. And if you look back at that Nick Griffin when he went on Question Time, they just attacked him in relation to, he's a wretched individual. And it's the same with Nigel. They're sidestepping the reality. A leg of lamb is 50 quid. A leg of lamb is 50 quid. We've got it. Seriously, you go in a supermarket, cheese has got a security tag on it. That's the problem that the majority of people have phoned you up about this morning. The actual cost of living is through the roof. And the funniest thing of all in relation to Labour is that all the train drivers and the doctors have been given big pay increases. And now, by freezing the thresholds, they will pay more tax. So guess what? They're back in for big money next year. We're in a terrible place with this government. Starmer just has to go, give the seals back to Charles and move on.
What a lovely thought that would be. He gets a limo to the palace and says, I'm out. In our dreams, Andrew. Andrew, are you an alarm clock Brit?
No, I've actually moved away from that. I've got to tell you, it's really funny. We've got one of those lights that comes on in the morning. It's the best thing you could ever do.
Oh, is that it? So what happens is you're lying in bed and then the room gets bright and you wake up.
And I tell you what, for you, someone that has to get up early in the morning, it will change your life in a very positive way. Those things are really... Oh, yeah, genuinely, all joking aside, Mark, it's a really good way to wake up. You don't have that jolt. It's really cool.
Sounds very good. It's like a sad lamp thing and it brightens up. Well, and the question is, therefore, if you're an alarm clock Brit, does it feel worth it? How do you feel? Do you feel, that it's even worth the bother these days, Andrew, getting up early in the morning?
Yeah, if you want to get it in perspective, there's a little girl who hasn't got a mummy for Christmas, and her mummy worked as a receptionist in that migrant hotel, and the man stabbed her to death with a screwdriver. My life is, I'm very fortunate, but actually it isn't worth it anymore. When people that are going to work and earning a low wage are being slaughtered by people who've contributed nothing, and everybody supports them in government, that's when we've lost the plot. That little girl hasn't got a mummy for Christmas. That's the lowest point this country could get to.
A devastating and important point. Andrew, have a good day and you take care of yourself. And thank you for the recommendation of a different kind of alarm clock. But this is an alarm call, isn't it? The danger in our society. By the way, I had two left-wing guests on my show on Sunday morning, and I couldn't get them to accept that it's actually worse if someone commits a crime that shouldn't be here. They just couldn't get that. They said, no, well, lots of Brits do crime. I'm like, yeah, but it's worse if someone that shouldn't be here does it. Is it not? And they said, no. Welcome to the left. That's why a revolution is coming. So much more to come. Are Reform UK supporters Nazis? That's next.
Some breaking news for you coming out of Liverpool Crown Court.
Loads to talk about, I promise you that. Loads and loads and loads.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the programme. Welcome to the home of common sense.
Yes, it's me again, your genial host, Kevin O'Sullivan.
Top of the morning to you. This is Talk Breakfast. I'm Mark Dolan.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is 8:49. You're listening to Morning Glory. Mark Dolan with you until 10 a.m. The Dolan's Dispatch is coming in 10 minutes' time. You won't want to miss it. I'll be dealing with the Tory party in no uncertain terms after their chairman compared Reform UK to the Nazi Party. You couldn't make it up. That's today's Dolan's Dispatch with live instant reaction from Anne Widdecombe. That's in 10 minutes' time. Don't miss it. Big reaction to my interview with James Cleverly, who of course is in the shadow cabinet. Dave in South Gloucester says, good morning, Mark. Cleverly was waffling and struggling. He wants to damage reform but does not want to align himself with Holinrake. They're now becoming grubby and indulging in gutter politics. The Tories were not honest with the public over 14 years. Why should we believe him that they're being honest now? Waffle, waffle, waffle. It just doesn't cut it, Mr. Cleverly. That is Dave in South Gloucester. Good grief, Mark, says Susan. Cleverly was floundering as much as Starmer. Holinrake, the chairman, is as childish as The Guardian. Where's the gravitas? It is playground stuff, says Susan. Catherine in Cardiff. Oh my God, Mark, what a terrible performance by James Cleverly on your programme this morning. A definite vote of no confidence from me. Thank goodness he did not win the leadership campaign. That's Catherine in Cardiff. And we've got a voice note on the interview with Cleverly, and this is Gary. Take it away, Gary.
Morning, Mark. It's Gary from Canterbury. Love the show, by the way. I'm fed up at this, all this political point scoring all the time. You know, all you get is the Labour going after reform. You've got Conservatives going after reform, and all this political point scoring. If they spent more time, like trying to, you know, fix the country instead of this political point scoring, we might be in a better position. Apart from their bad decisions, and seriously, a lot more bad decisions to come tomorrow. But thanks, Mark, for keeping us in the loop on all of this, because I tell you what, this just drives me nuts now.
Thank you so much for that. Brilliant to get your thoughts. Listen, those voice notes, they're the most important part of the show, right? It's your opinions on the airwaves. What I think is amazing is that you get it, right? Gary gets it, Dan gets it, the viewers and listeners, and those who govern the country and administer it in the civil service do not. I tell you what, I could do with some light relief. Can we talk about football?
90 minutes in 90 seconds. From The Sun.
And I'm delighted to say I'm joined now by the Sun's chief sports reporter, Martin Lipman. And Lipton, I did that last time, and I've done it again.
Done it again.
Oh, for goodness sakes. Martin, lovely to see you. I'll put my teeth in. First of all, a stuttering performance from United, which puts paid to the idea that they've somehow completely recovered.
Without question. But I think the highlight of the game wasn't Manchester United's performance. It was the fight between the two Everton players, between Idrissa Gueye and Michael Keane, which saw Gueye sent off in the 13th minute. United has 77 minutes against 10 men, failed to really cause any problems. I think it was 6 shots on target in the entire game.
Amazing.
Most of them dealt with fairly comfortably by Jordan Pickford. that's the run of 5 wins or 5 games without defeat for United come to a very sudden stop. But I think people are still talking about the red card. It doesn't happen very often that you have a fight with a teammate. Famously, Dyer and Bowyer for Newcastle, and I was in Moscow nearly 30 years ago when Lascelles and Batty had a bit of a tear-up playing for Blackburn. So everyone laughs, except the Manchester United fans.
Well, this is it. It's got to be a sweet moment for David Moyes to do a number on a club that he managed not that successfully post-Alex Ferguson.
He hasn't won there in 18 games as a visiting manager. He had that one season at United and lost quite a lot of the games in that season in 2013-14. David has had a bit of stick from Everton fans recently over performances and results. I think this will certainly underpin his position, that he's doing a good job in the circumstances. I think Everton fans want more. David, though, has always loved proving people wrong. It's something he does regularly. Look at what's happened to West Ham since he left. It's not been great. He won them their only trophy in 30 years, and yet his reward for that was being for not being exciting enough. Well, that's not the be-all and end-all, is it?
Be careful what you wish for. I know, I think he's an amazing guy, David Moyes. I think he's deeply underrated, given the fact that following his stint at United, and by the way, who wants to follow Fergie, and then an unsuccessful short stint in Spain, it looked like his career was over. He goes to West Ham, does a good job. Back at Everton, where, of course, it's Moyesy side, isn't it, as well as Merseyside. So you can't keep a good man down.
He loves the game still. I spent a bit of time in his company over the summer in the States when the pre-season tour, including a game against United. And he remains as engaging and as passionate as ever. He just loves what he does, and football for him is an overwhelming passion. You see it in the way his teams perform. You see it in his action. Look at his reactions to the goals, to the moments, and even laughing at the red card at the end, which you can do when you've won. Football would be a worse place without David Moyes, in my book.
Definitely. I'm a fan of his. He's an amazing guy. Before we let you go, Martin, Liverpool have spent, in the region of £500 million, and it's made them much worse.
Yeah, 426. Some people have count it as 450 others, but that included record signing of Isak, who hasn't scored a goal in the league, Etitike, who owes 70 million, Wirtz 100 million. And they've gone backwards horrendously. 6 defeats in the last 7. Wayne Rooney has said Salah should be dropped. Stephen Warnock at Liverpool says Isak should be training with the reserves. Something is rotten in the heart of Liverpool at the moment.
The Sun newspaper is #1 for Premier League coverage, and the Sun's chief sports reporter is Martin Lipton. Martin, lovely to see you. We'll catch up again in the near future. Many people are concerned about the budget tomorrow. They are struggling, and they are what we're calling, thanks to Karen, whose voice note earlier dropped on the show, alarm clock Brits. Are you an alarm clock Brit? Well, let's take a listen to Dan on that very subject.
Mark, this is Dan from Henlow. I run a garden room business, like bespoke garden rooms. I'm up at 5 every day, don't go to bed till probably 10, 11 every night. Got multiple jobs on, busy. Pay silly amounts of tax for what? For paying for people to sit at home, playing on their Xboxes, can't go to work because they're snowflakes and they get anxious in a work environment. I just, honestly, if I could move to America, I'll be gone tomorrow. I'll be gone. This country is on its knees and it's going to be on its back soon. I've had enough. Anyway, have a lovely day.
Dan, up at 5 in the morning with a garden room business. I'm sure lovely product, right? Happy customers, but any profit he makes gets taxed to the hilt. And by the way, the tax doesn't stop, does it, Dan? With at source, so you got your self-assessment or your PAYE and all the rest of it. It's not just your income that's taxed. But when you go shopping, you have the VAT on everything that moves. So that's another tax. And you've got your council tax and you've got your road tax. There's the tax on the petrol. There's no end to it. Oh, but what about the threshold where you don't pay tax? Well, that's going to be frozen, so more people will pay tax. There's a theme emerging here, isn't it? And what was it, Winston Churchill, who said, you cannot tax your way to prosperity? Now, does it matter what Nigel Farage said when he was a teenager in the playground? This is a voice note from Anne. All yours, Anne.
Morning, Mark. At the time Nigel Farage was supposedly saying racist things in the playground, the BBC were happily broadcasting Till Death Us Do Part, ITV happily broadcasting Love Thy Neighbour. So if he was influenced, maybe he was influenced by them. And if they're allowed to change and evolve, why can't Nigel Farage? Thanks, Mark. Great show. Anne from Dubrovnik.
Brilliant. Thank you for your common sense comments, Anne. You're so right with that historical context. Who cares? What I care about is what you're going through, which is energy bills, which is inflation, which is unemployment, which is enormous taxes, and a disincentive to put a shift in, a disincentive to set that alarm clock. We've got another voice note coming in, and it's Peter. Peter, all yours.
Peter from Lancashire, mate. Yeah, I'm a taxi, mate, and probably pay about £700 a year to work for my badge and me compliance plate, and then I get taxed on my fuel. I get taxed VAT on tyres. Any work on my car, I get taxed. I get taxed on fuel. I think I've said that. Road tax. I drive a hybrid, so anything below 30 mile an hour, it's electric. And because it's a taxi, I get stung £235 a year, where it should be £160. There's just no end, mate. There's no end. I'm all legit. I do my tax return. I've got my UTR number. They always find a way of taxing me at the end of the year, even with what I've had to pay out. Yeah, I'm thinking of going on the dole, mate. Sod it. Take care, mate. Bye.
I do not blame you, Pete. And the goodwill that Pete exercises every time that he gets up in the morning and works hard has been pushed back in his face by those who govern us. It's not right, and it's so unfair. More on this to come.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
3 minutes past 9, I'm Mark Dolan. This is Morning Glory. A big hour to come. Breaking news today, the chairman of the Conservative Party under pressure now to resign over a joke post on X comparing Reform UK to Adolf Hitler's Nazi party. It's a crisis that threatens to engulf the Conservative Party, having sparked huge anger among Reform UK supporters, with Nigel Farage said to be furious at the comparison. Now, it's the topic of today's Dolan's Dispatch in just a couple of moments' time, and I'll get live reaction off the back of that from Anne Widdecombe, who left the Tory party in 2019 as a result of its shift leftward. Meanwhile, the BBC in disarray over bias claims as the corporation's chairman refuses to back down in the Donald Trump censored speech row. And as Rachel prepares her accounts for the year, in a hotly anticipated and universally feared budget, Sir Keir Starmer and David Lammy will escape the proposed mansion tax. That's right, they won't pay, whilst other wealth creators are taken to the cleaners. Isn't that convenient? Plus, the Chancellor prepares to wage war on savers. We're hearing this morning that those people who try to put a bit away for the future are to be inflicted with further tax rises to fill her black hole. Our budget preview continues. Also this morning, Brighton Council cancel a Union Jack art exhibition for fear of causing offence. And half of Brits now back the scrapping of HS2. So it's all about getting your opinions on the national television and radio airways. My phone number is 03444991000. Text the word talk and your message to 87222. And I've got a simple question for you this morning as we prepare for Rachel Reeves's budget, which is, are you an alarm clock Brit? I want to thank Karen for that. She left a voice note in the second hour of the show, and she said she's an alarm clock Brit, somebody that gets up early in the morning to put a shift in, to work very, very hard for ever diminishing returns. She's paying her taxes and she's thinking, what is the point? So tell me about your financial circumstances. What are you going through? What are your feelings? Let's take this voice note before the Dolan's Dispatch from Henry, who is one of the many alarm clock Brits.
Good morning, Henry from London. Yes, I'm an alarm clock Brit. 3:30 my alarm goes off. I'm out of the house by 4:15, working in London. Are Reform voters Nazis? Well, they're basically the offspring of the generation that defeated the Nazis. Take a look at that one.
Henry, thank you for that. A proud alarm clock Brit. We've got your back here on Morning Glory. Tell me your stories. Tell me about your bills. Tell me about your finances, how hard you work and what you go through. And tell me whether you think it is still worth it. But before we do that, at 6 minutes past 9, it is time for Dolan's Dispatch. The mask has slipped. Of course, we already knew it. The Conservatives have become a left-wing party. The end. With the chairman of this once great political movement indulging in pathetic student politics by comparing Reform UK to the Nazis. Now, this is the gutter politics of the hard left, but now in the playbook of a Conservative party in denial, in crisis and in free fall. Their shift leftwards has been quite alarming. The embracing of net zero, which is socialism in a green dress. The COVID lockdowns, encouraged by Labour, yes, but inflicted upon us by a so-called Conservative government and a so-called Conservative Prime Minister in Boris Johnson, a man also responsible for Britain's catastrophic open borders experiment, which has led to a situation in which 1 in 25 Brits entered this country over the last 5 years. Let that sink in. And speaking of sinking, the boats crisis. For almost a decade now, up to 1,000 undocumented young men every day crossing the Channel, all on the watch of a Conservative government. Shoplifting is rife. There's antisocial behaviour. Teenagers walk around with machetes the size of a snowboard, all brought to you by a Conservative party whose chairman on Sunday night decided to go on the social media website X and strike a parallel between Reform UK and Hitler's Germany. Where to start? First of all, to make flippant parallels with the most evil regime in history and the slaughter of millions of Jews shows an utter lack of empathy for the victims of the Second World War. It is tone-deaf and insulting. It tells us that the Tories have completely lost the plot. And it tells us something else. It tells us that they're in denial of the fact that it's over, as they sneer at a party in Reform UK who have gained traction as a result of their failures in office, Tory failures in office. And the unfortunate interpretation of Kevin Hollinrake's ex-post is that if you're worried about the consequences of illegal immigration, if you're unhappy about a rapidly changing society that no one voted for, if you're concerned about ruinous environmental policies or the economic quicksand of high taxes and inflation, if you're worried about a bloated and unproductive public sector, then according to the chairman of this once great party, you're no better than someone who supported Hitler's project, history's greatest monster. Now, I'm a free speech absolutist, OK? So Kevin Hollinrake is entitled, he's entitled to send that post, no problem. I'm not even sure he should be sacked, I don't know. Let me know, what do you think? But I think the post, in fact, it was quite useful because it revealed what millions have concluded already, that the Tories don't get it, that they're in denial, that they've lost the plot, that it's over. The arrogance is there for all to see in relation to a rival in Reform UK who are about to destroy them. And the lack of contrition for their failure in office is crystal clear. Kevin Hollinrake said that this post was a joke. No, Kevin, it's the Tories that are the joke. 0344 499 1000, your reaction. Anne Widdecombe left the Conservative Party in 2019 because of its shift leftward. She joins me now. Good morning, Anne.
Good morning. It wasn't, of course, just the leftward shift. It was the mess over Brexit, if you remember.
Most definitely. And you joined the Brexit Party, and following that, Reform UK, who you now seek to have the election of in a couple of years' time. Anne, what does this move by Kevin Hollinrake, this decision to post something online which compares Reform UK to the Nazis, what does it tell us about the contemporary modern-day Tory party?
I'm afraid what it says about them is that they've lost the plot completely. I mean, at the very best, that was a childish joke, but please, not coming from the chairman of the Conservative Party. You should have known a great deal better. And the other thing it might be is just sheer desperation. They know they're losing to Reform, so they have to insult Reform. They would do so much better if they learnt from us.
Most definitely. And this is the party that you left. Maria Caulfield, a former Conservative MP, quote tweeted Kevin Hollinrake's post and said, "This is why I left the Tory party."
Indeed, and I think a lot of people will actually be driven out by that tweet from Kevin Hollinrake. I think a lot of them will now say, look, you know, they just don't get it. They equate any talk of controlling immigration with racism. They're insulting millions of ordinary Reform supporters, just ordinary guys and girls who want to support Reform, and they're being called Nazis. Now, you know, what are they supposed to think? I actually think he could cause a mini exodus from his party by what he's done.
And it shows, doesn't it, Anne, that they're running scared. Your former colleague, your former leader, Margaret Thatcher, said that when people resort to insults, it means they've lost the argument.
Well, indeed. And, I mean, it was such a stupid insult. I mean, you look at those two badges, they're nothing like each other, except the fact they're round badges. Well, I wore round badges in the Tory party. I wore one that said, "A good Thatcher keeps you dry." I mean, it is perfectly normal for political activists or political supporters in general to wear badges from time to time. There's nothing odd about that. The Tories do it themselves.
And what's strange is that this is the playbook of the hard left normally, isn't it? Demonising people as Nazis and fascists.
Yeah, indeed it is. But I think, you know, the Tory party is now so desperate that it picks on anything. Even if that was supposed to have been a casual joke, then the chairman of the Tory party should have stopped and thought, this is only a joke, but might it be taken the wrong way? Didn't even ask himself that.
It also suggests a degree of arrogance on the part of the party, doesn't it? There's no contrition for the legacy of 14 years of Conservative rule, for example, only sneering at their rival.
Yeah, they don't get it. They absolutely don't get it. They don't understand the rejection that they have suffered and are suffering daily in the polls at the hands of the British people. They don't get that at all. They don't get that the reason that people are flocking to reform is not because they're Nazis, but because they desperately want common sense restored into British life, and they want freedom restored into British life. And if only the Tory party would concentrate on that, it might manage to pluck back a couple of votes, but only a couple, probably.
You must feel rather gratified by how things have played out. You were a very early dissident of the Conservative project, and I think it was a significant moment, Anne. I mean, it demonstrates your judgment that you called it that early, all the way back in 2019. But others have followed, as you said, since. And, you know, it was not an easy thing for you to do, to leave the Tory party, was it? You'd been a member and supporter of the party for decades, for your entire adult life, and even you'd had enough.
Yes, I mean, I was a member of the party for 55 years.
Wow.
I'd been an activist in my youth, you know, branch, area, championships and all that sort of stuff. And I had always been a very active and fully committed Tory from the age of 16 when I joined the Young Conservatives. And so it wasn't easy, but on the other hand, I could see the path ahead. I could see it very, very clearly. And I reckon that we were in one of those periods, only occurs about every century in British politics, when there's a genuine upheaval. The last one was the emergence of the Labour Party about a century ago. And I was hoping that would play out. But the real reason I left in 2019 was because the Tories, and it was the Tories, it was Cameron, had held a referendum of the people, and then they spent years, and I do mean years, messing about, trying not to implement it in any real sense. And they still haven't.
Because they didn't want it to happen. I mean, the Conservatives are not Conservative anymore. It must sadden you to see what's happened. If you want high taxes, a big state, big spending, then you should vote Labour. If you want an end to illegal immigration, low taxes and economic growth, then perhaps go for reform. Who are the Tories for now, Anne?
I don't know. And the sad thing is, I don't think they know themselves. They will talk the language of reform. They'll talk tougher control of immigration, lower taxes, etc. But they've absolutely no record at all. And don't forget that up until last year, they've been there for 14 long years. They've no record at all of actually matching action to words. None.
I think it's hubris, isn't it? It's like the last days of Rome, Anne. Let's take a listen now to a response to a different story, which is allegations of racism on the part of Nigel Farage as a teenager. This is a voice note, Anne, from Sharon. Sharon, all yours.
Morning, Mark. It just makes me laugh about what we're talking about this morning. I'm 61, and when we were kids, we used to watch Freddie Starr walking around with his wellies on, dressing up as a Nazi. We used to watch the black and white minstrel show. All of these things that nobody now is allowed to do. But all them many years ago, I'm the same age as Nigel Farage, and I can remember all them. So what are they digging up is just a load of rubbish. Good show, Mark. Sharon from Yorkshire.
Thank you so much for... Was that Sarah or Sharon? Sharon, thank you, Sharon. Sorry, a little block on the line there. Thank you, Sharon, for a lovely voice note and kind words. And Anne and I will, I've got to say, echo that sentiment of your voice note. Similarly, Anne, we've got Kieran in Liverpool texting me saying, "Good morning, Mark. In relation to Nigel Farage's so-called racist comment as a child, I just watched..." Oh, no, so he said, "Just watch any episode of Only Fools and Horses and you'll hear similar comments, which are clearly not acceptable now, but they were a sign of the times." Why are we seeing this political excavation happening, Anne?
Well, first of all, it is pathetic. I mean, I echo your viewers' comments on that. I don't want to sound so cynical, but if you really want to hear sick jokes and terrible banter, etc., just try Teenage Boys. I mean, it is the most normal thing on earth. It really is. and I can't take it seriously. You ask me why they're dredging it up now. I would give you the same answer that I gave you just now in response to a different question, which is desperation. They can't actually argue with the policies. They can't argue with the vast surge of popular support. So they try to go back decades of a man's life to when he was a teenager and take some nonsense banter and make it real. And it is just such nonsense.
And Anne, today's show is dedicated to and focused upon alarm clock Brits. That is a term coined by my earlier listener who left a voice note, Karen. And this is people that get up in the morning, put a shift in, pay their taxes for diminishing returns. And Anne, I've got this message from Dale, who says, "Good morning, Mark. I'm a self-employed alarm clock Brit. The alarm goes off anywhere between 3 a.m. and 6 a.m. 7 days a week, Anne. Depending on where I'm working. I finish at around 7 or 8 in the evening, then do it all again. Is it worth it? Well, I love what I do, but in monetary gain, not really. My partner has friends who don't work, and between them get £6,000 a month in tax-free benefits, making more than I do. What's the alternative to work? Sitting on my backside watching life go by? No thanks. I'd sooner be contributing and working than sitting idle taking everyone for a ride. I'm 57 and have worked since I was 17, and I'll be working till I drop." That's Dale, and Dale speaks for many, doesn't he, Anne? In many ways, you get up in the morning, what's the point?
Well, indeed, and I mean, I think, you know, alarm clock Brits, as they're called, really are right to feel resentful, because it is too easy not to work in this country. I know that. You know, I've been an employment minister. It's too easy not to work. Successive governments have tried successive measures. None of them have been really effective, and largely because the will is not there. And the will does need to be there to actually say to people who are perfectly capable of working, well, it's your choice. You work or you laze around at home, but we won't pay you to do the latter.
Anne, a pleasure to see you again. Have an excellent Tuesday. Anne Widdecombe is a former Home Office minister, broadcaster and author as well. Always love having Anne on the show. Stephen says, "Mark, I was an alarm clock Brit for 40 years, getting up at 4 a.m. That's right, 4 a.m. to start work at 5. Nights, weekends, Christmas, New Year, bank holidays, you name it. Paid off my mortgage at 50 years old. I've just retired, and now Labour and Reeds want to tax me more for doing well in life and working for everything that I've achieved. Miliband wants more energy taxes from me. Where is the incentive to do well and have aspirations? Stephen, there is none, and it's a race to the bottom. It's economic quicksand. Would you like a quick voice note? Yes, we're going to... Lovely producer Christian is going to ask us to play this out, and this is Richard on the somewhat controversial interview I had with James Cleverly earlier today.
Hi Mark, it's Richard from Lincolnshire. I can't believe James Cleverly has got the cheek to say that Reform are letting people down after 14 years of Tory absolute incompetence. Tories are finished. Absolute joke. Cheers, mate. Have a good show.
Thank you very much, Richard, for that. Are you an alarm clock Brit? More on this next.
Just some breaking news for you coming out of Liverpool Crown Court.
Loads to talk about, I promise you that. Loads and loads and loads.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the programme. Welcome to the Home of Common Sense.
Yes, it's me again, your genial host, Kevin O'Sullivan.
Top of the morning to you. This is Talk Breakfast. I'm Mark Dolan.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
.24 Morning Glory. So much more to get through before 10 o'clock. Don't forget, at 10, the one and only Julia Hartley Brewer. This is not a drill. She's live at 10. She'll come and tell us about the show just beforehand. So many stories floating around. Are you an alarm clock Brit? This is Laura regarding the budget. Take it away, Laura.
Morning, Mark. This is Laura from London. I thought the Labour Party were all about putting more money back in their working class pocket. But if you're going to give 15 billion to the non-working people, that's going to have to come from the working people's pocket. So how's that aligned then to your manifesto?
You're so right, Laura. Make it make sense. It doesn't, does it? But this is a government that tells us black is white and left is right, and that if you've got meat and two veg, you're a woman. So how can we be surprised? Laura, thank you for that. Now, another group that are going to be impacted by the budget tomorrow, and have been, of course, in the previous budget, are the farmers, who have staged a nationwide go slow in protest against the inheritance tax raid. And this, of course, is designed to make Rachel Reeves think again about this egregious raid on the farming community. I'm delighted to say that with me now are farmer and committee member of the East Anglian Farmers Unite organisation, Russell Abbott. And I understand have we got Kath as well? Yeah, brilliant. And also Kath Crowther, who is a country, land and business organisation executive. Great to have you both of you on. Kath, tell us why you're protesting. Why is this inheritance tax raid so bad for farmers?
Yeah, so the CLA aren't a protest organisation, we're a lobbying organisation,
Right.
But we are trying to explain to government the impact of the proposals. So they say that the proposed changes to agricultural property relief and business property relief will only impact very few. But we've undermined that data over and over again. And we know that the vast majority of farms and many other family businesses outside farming will be impacted by this.
And it will actually generate very little income in relative terms for the Treasury, but cause a whole lot of pain for farmers, Kath.
Absolutely. So there's been independent modelling that suggests that there would be a loss to the Exchequer of 1.9 billion, not the highly uncertain 500 million that they think that they could raise. We're already seeing a lot of family businesses withdrawing investment because of the impact of it, because the lack of certainty that this is causing. If you invest in new machinery to improve your productivity, if you convert some buildings over, then that increases the value of your asset. So that increases the tax that you would need to pay, but also you're needing to retain that money to pay for a future tax. So this isn't about avoiding tax. All of these people, these businesses are already paying all of the taxes that they should be, but this is an additional unaffordable tax that that would mean a lot of businesses going out of business.
So you're suggesting that the egregious inheritance tax raid could be a net loss for the Treasury rather than bring any money in?
Yeah, and a 14.9 billion loss to the economy. 200,000 job losses.
Absolutely devastating. Russell Abbott, farmer and committee member of the East Anglian Farmers Unite organisation. What message does this tax raid send to farmers? How does it make you and your colleagues feel?
Absolutely heartbroken, because on the back of what has already been, I'm 42 and it's been the worst farming year on record for me. We had a drought that went on from about middle of March time, and it went right the way through to nearly September. Hardly any rainfall, and what rain we did get came far too late to save crops. You'd think that on the back of a bad year like that, prices would rise for the wheat, the barley, the potatoes that we produce, but it's actually done completely the opposite thing. Prices have fell. And when you look at a year like that, that's just saying we've been asked to pay that tax, and I was in that situation now. How do I pay it? We're not in control of the prices that are set for our produce that we sell. We can't name what we want. You know, nothing's going up in line with inflation, but yet everything that we put into a crop, i.e. the fertiliser, the chemicals, all that's going up. And the gap is widening all the time. And now the government are putting this on us. It's absolutely ludicrous. We cannot pay it.
And Russell, farming is critical infrastructure, isn't it? Because you're putting food on our plates.
Absolutely. And what worries me is that out of all this, inevitably, it will rise the price of food. And there are people that are already on a really tight breadline that should be able to buy good, healthy and wholesome food. And I fear, my biggest fear is that those people won't be able to afford that, and that in turn could cause an NHS crisis.
I completely agree with you, because what you need if you're feeding your family is some mince, a steak, a chicken breast, some fish, real food, potatoes, onions, tomatoes. What you don't want is them, Russell, running to the supermarket and buying a ton of pasta and rice, processed rubbish that is only going to add to the nation's health problems.
Absolutely, and we're already importing far too much. We produce wheat here in this country. Why are we letting wheat come into this country which has been produced using some methods which have been banned here in this country, but yet they can produce that cheaper because they're using those banned methods in other countries?
Well, I totally agree, and I've actually never understood, Russell, why we import so many apples from Fiji and the other side of the world, given... anyone been to Kent? They've got a couple of apples there, the West Country as well. And Russell, before I come back to Kath, you know, I think it's underestimated maybe by those that govern us, the bureaucrats of this country, of just what a challenge farming is. Now, I know that, you know, no farmer wants to be had pity on them or any of that stuff. You know, there are no farmers consider themselves victims, but it's just important to remember that it's a hard life, isn't it? It's long hours in all weathers. Can you sort of take me through, like, your average day?
Yeah, OK, so let's talk about this year. I mean, I'd just like to tell you something about my family. I'm a third-generation farmer, fourth generation overall. You can see two photographs behind me. And this is my great-grandfather working with my father's uncle. Family and generations is what it means to farmers.
Yeah.
It's in our heart, it's in our blood. We can't do nothing else. I couldn't do anything else. I don't want to do anything else. That's why we're so resilient and we push on. And on the back of this is the final nail in the coffin. There is no coming back after this. It will kill family farms. I'm a 200-acre farm here. We have already diversified because farming is not profitable enough. We have a farm shop, which my nana started up in the 70s. We're still doing that to current day, where we sell our own seasonal vegetables on the farm, which are produced here. Everything's cut by hand. We've just come out of the field to do this interview. I've been cutting leeks by hand. We've diversified into caravan storage and agricultural contracting. And going back to your question, from March, in that dry period, I've been starting irrigators up anything from 4 o'clock in the morning, and sometimes not getting back in to see my family until 10 o'clock in the evening. My average working week, me and my wife have worked this out, has been 96 hours. Most of that has been unpaid because I cannot afford to pay myself. It's our farm, and we have to put that effort in to put food on people's tables. And that's where the connection is lost. The government do not understand, and they are so distant from agriculture itself, the industry. I've been down to London, I've been to Westminster, I've lobbied with Labour MPs, and I will say they listen. They do listen. It seems like they take it on board. But only time will tell as to where they vote and what their feelings actually are.
It just pains me to listen to you, Russell. It's so wrong, it's so unfair, it's so stupid, it's so self-destructive, and it's so pointless. The whole thing is so pointless, Kath Crowther.
Yeah, absolutely agree. You know, as I said, farmers look rich on paper, but that value is tied up in all of these assets. So Russell there talking about the farm shop. The farm shop on paper has a value, but that value isn't realised unless it's sold. And on death, there is no cash there to be able to pay this tax. So I think it's an understanding of how it operates. Because the threshold they're saying will be £1 million. And £1 million is a lot of money, but it isn't if it's just a valuation on paper. These traditional family businesses invest for the long term. They provide stable jobs. They're investing and growing the economy. And this government says that they want investment and growth, but everything they're doing at the moment is undermining investment and growth. We've got to understand that we need the certainty and the stability for businesses to be able to operate. These are businesses that pay taxes year in, year out. They grow the economy year in, year out. But if that's undermined, then they don't have the ability to keep growing the economy, to keep creating jobs and growing good food, looking after the environment. So everything is undermining what they say they're wanting at the moment.
And it's not understood that farming, as Russell has said there, is a labour of love. For most farmers, you're not making millions by any stretch, and very often not making a bean just to keep the business going. Briefly, if you can, Kath, do you have any hopes for tomorrow that there could be good news for farmers in the budget?
Unfortunately, we're not seeing any movement at the moment, but what we're really asking for is for Treasury to get around the table and talk about the problems they think they're wanting to solve with this policy. Let's come up with the solutions together. We had come up with some alternative options and they haven't got around to talk to us about that. So let's work on this together. We want to get around the table with government, explain that their data is incorrect, and come up with the solutions so that we can keep producing very good food, caring for the environment and investing and creating jobs.
Yeah, it's my personal view, clobbering the farmers, clobbering the private schools. I think it's politics, not economics. Just my view, Kath. Russell, before we let you go, with the clock against us, if she's watching the programme, and of course she does tune in from time to time, what is your message, Russell, to Rachel Reeves ahead of her budget tomorrow?
What I'd like to say is, Rachel, please look at the evidence. Please talk to us farmers, listen to us. We really do want to produce food for the people of this country, and if you don't act, potentially you're going to ruin what great industry this is.
My thanks to Russell Abbott, who's a farmer and committee member at the East Anglian Farmers Unite, and Kath Crowther from Country, Land and Business Organisation. Thank you to you both, and more power to you for the slow-go protest that's currently playing out here in the southeast. So listen, you know, the whole thing's a hot mess, isn't it? You're a farmer, whatever you do, anybody that sets their alarm clock in the morning is the enemy of this administration by the looks of it. Chris in Cumbria, good morning, Mark. I have, wait for it, £2.40, you heard me right, £2.40 in my ISA account and cannot afford to put any more in and haven't been able to for several years. Bills up, savings down, living hand to mouth with the nightmare on Downing Street tomorrow, and I know we will be worse off. But I bet they won't be cutting corners on their Christmas party this year at our expense. Chris in Cumbria. You're so right about that. Rachel Reeves didn't cut any expenses when she removed the urinals from number 11 and replaced artwork featuring successful previous chancellors with a bunch of women. OK. I don't care. You can't cancel me. That's what she did. She replaced successful chancellors with a bunch of women. This from Dan on the budget. Take it away.
Morning, Mark. It's Dan from Kent. I'm an alarm clock Brit. I leave the house about 5 o'clock on a Monday morning. I don't return until Friday about 4 p.m. I do this to support my family, to pay my ever-rising bills, the ever-rising food shop, not to support someone that illegally breaks into this country, not to someone that can't be bothered to get up and go to work. And if Rachel thinks she can tax me even more, well, I think we're at a breaking point.
A breaking point is right. Dan, thank you for that. Thanks for all the voice notes this morning. Lots more to come. Keep it talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
.40, you're listening to Morning Glory. Mark Dolan with you until 10. Julia Hartley-Brewer up at 10. I've got the privilege of your company for the next few days. Thank you for having me. Thanks for all the texts, calls and messages. Let's take this voice note now from... who's the voice note from? Oh, just a couple of texts. OK, so thank you so much for that. Listen, folks, Farage, this is very interesting. Farage has been focused on by the Guardian newspaper for remarks he made 49 years ago in the school playground. This from Lorraine. Good morning, Mark. Stop calling the Nazi post from Kevin Hollinrake, the chairman of the Tory party, a joke. It's not. It's a serious, deliberate attempt to gaslight the electorate into thinking Reform is a fascist party. This is a dangerous narrative and cleverly proved that with his continual slurs that he is in the gutter. It's dangerous stuff. If anything happens to Farage, both Labour and Conservatives will have blood on their hands. It's not a joke. Let's have some serious journalism, please. More of those thoughts to come. But quite an interesting story coming out of Australia now. An Australian senator has been suspended for a week after wearing a burqa in Parliament to push a ban for a ban on the Muslim garment. Pauline Hanson was condemned by fellow senators and latterly formally censured for the stunt on Monday, with one colleague accusing her of blatant racism. Well, let's get reaction now. Live in the studio is a marvellous journalist, the News Corps Australia-Europe correspondent, Sophie Ellsworth. Hello, Sophie.
Hi, Mark.
Great to have you in the studio. First of all, who is Pauline Hanson? This is a woman with growing popularity in Australia by the looks of it.
Absolutely it is. So Pauline Hanson is the leader of the One Nation Party, which I'd really mirror them with the Reform Party here. They have similar policies, similar ideas, broadly speaking, and their popularity is growing. They're a smaller party. We obviously have the Labor government in power, and we have the coalition similar to here with Conservatives and Labor. But there's a growing resentment with the main parties and a push now for people turning to alternatives such as One Nation, and that is who Pauline Hanson is. She's the leader of this party, which is described, Mark, as far right often by the leftist media, but the Conservative Party with conservative policies.
Oh, that's interesting. So that you wouldn't necessarily, just with a cold intellectual eye on it, you would not characterise them as extremists or far right?
I wouldn't know, and I don't think a lot of people would.
Yeah.
But when you read a lot of the dialogue in the Australian media, which is a lot of left-leaning media, that picture may be painted.
And Pauline Hanson, not unlike Nigel Farage in this country, is a very charismatic figure. She's very commanding. She's got presence. She's not afraid of cancellation. And now she's just conducted this bold stunt of wearing a burqa in Parliament. So she's not taking any prisoners, is she?
No, and she's stood by what she's done. Now, whether you agree with that or not, that's for people to make their own decisions. But she was trying to introduce a bill to ban the burqa. That was rejected, so she effectively pulled this stunt moments after. And as a result, they've banned her from Parliament for a week, the last remaining days of Parliament this year, which is interesting, Mark, because this hasn't happened where they've banned a senator, I think, since the late 1970s. So it's a rare thing to happen in Australia. But of course, many people are annoyed with this. Some are saying it's offensive what she did. Others saying good on her for doing it. So there's a mixed response.
Well, all she's done, she's not said anything. She's just worn a burqa.
She has.
It's a statement. It's performative. So therefore, you know, hard necessarily to just literally describe it as racist. I mean, has this been a good moment for her, or has it backfired? What do you think?
I think there's a mixed response, really, Mark. Some will say, why is she doing this? I was just reading some comment pieces in Australia saying she's really stooping low to actually pull this stunt. But look, Mark, we're talking about it here in London. It's gone all around the world. It was yesterday on many of the websites around the world. So it's interesting for a small party, they've had a global impact.
And is it my understanding that legal migration into Australia is proportionally even higher than here in the UK, or on a similar level?
It is high, and she has. This is one of her policies. She's saying we've got far too high level of migration. She's also called for things such as, if there's illegal migrants, they should be removed. They should be sent back to where they have originated from. She's quite strong on her anti-migration stance and illegal migrants, which I guess you could argue, Mark, is similar to here with Reform's attitude towards migration. So it's interesting.
And it really surprised me as a story, Sophie, because I thought the Australians had put the immigration issue to bed with Operation Sovereign Borders under Prime Minister Abbott, which looks to have back in the day, was it around 2013, and they unilaterally stopped the boats. But seemingly this issue has returned as a hot topic in Australia. Migration
is always a topic in Australia. Similar to here, it's always discussed, but it's very different to compare. It's different situation because we could stop the illegal migrants coming across in boats. Tony Abbott, former Prime Minister, did stop that. You guys in the UK always refer to the success Australia had, but remembering we're a country that sits in the middle of not a lot. There's not a lot around us. So to stop these boats coming in from different countries, whereas here with the Channel, it's only a short distance, isn't it?
Yeah, it's true.
So it's easier in Australia to stop it.
Yeah, Australia had the benefit of geography and political will, of course, which we certainly don't have in this country at the moment. And what about, from people that you're still in touch with in Australia, what is life like in Australia from a day-to-day point of view? And are the issues of, divided societies, people living in parallel, not speaking the language, not participating in Australian culture, how big an issue is it for everyday Australians, do you think?
So I often think with my time here in the UK, Mark, compared to living in Australia, we do discuss a lot of the same issues. Sometimes I feel we're a bit behind the UK in issues that we are tackling, but it's similar things that are dominating over there. Cost of living, inability to afford a house. Yes, migration does flare up, from time to time. The issues that is always discussed here, the anti-Semitic problems that we've had in Australia, which has made headlines around the world. So similar problems really, but the big one I think is cost of living in Australia. It is very expensive to live in some of the capital cities such as Sydney and Melbourne, and some people say it's as bad as being in London.
And not helped by large-scale migration, because of course that puts pressure on housing, doesn't it, as well as other infrastructure. So it's a big old issue. What can this woman do, Pauline Hanson? Will she ever achieve power, do you think?
She won't achieve power. It's a different political system here. No, obviously in Australia also it's compulsory to vote. It's not compulsory to vote here. We have the two major parties. Labor are winning. They're the government at the moment, and they're winning every poll quite convincingly. A recent poll showed Labor at 36% of support, the Coalition 24%, and One Nation 13%. She has no seats in the lower house to achieve government. She only has seats in the upper house. Don't want to make it too confusing for people, Mark,
it's interesting.
but the short is she will not be in power.
And yet she represents the views of potentially millions of Australians.
Potentially.
Given, for example, now this burqa stunt, why has she done that? Why is the burqa an issue for her?
So she has said that it's a national security risk. She doesn't like what the burqa represents, and she said it should be banned and we should follow many other countries. I think Denmark, it's banned.
Yeah, it is. France?
France is another one.
Yeah.
There's a whole list of countries, and she's saying it should be banned, and she's saying it's a risk. Having it, that people can wear this in society, they can hide behind it. She's come out on that.
Isn't it ironic that the left, who you would have thought would be of a feminist mindset, have got no problem with the burqa, which involves covering the entire face and body of a woman?
Well, that's some of the arguments that have been in Australia. The irony of this whole situation, I mean, it's...
What happened? Where are the Western feminists who
Don't
are on
know,
the streets
Mark.
going, why are our sisters covering their entire faces and bodies at the behest of a misogynistic culture? Why are people who identify as women but with male physiology using female spaces? What happened to Western feminism?
Well, it's really interesting, Mark, and this is where it's dividing the room, because you obviously have people who are very appalled by what Pauline Hanson did and others saying good on her. So a mixed response in Australia.
Well, listen, what a balanced overview. It was lovely to see you in the studio, Sophie. I remember interviewing you during the pandemic when you made so much sense about the craziness of lockdowns, and you've been proved right side of history, not for the first time. Sophie Ellsworth is the News Corp Australia-Europe correspondent. Lovely to have you in London. Australia's loss is our gain. We've got to ask about this. There's two issues going on with reform at the moment. The chairman of the Conservative Party has sent a post on X which compares Reform UK to the Nazis, which is pretty wild. Meanwhile, The Guardian are excavating Nigel Farage's history and worried about what he may have said in the playground 49 years ago. To cover all of that, this is Michael on a voice note. Michael, it's all yours.
Morning, Mark. Michael from Birmingham. Let's have a think about the Reform Nazi slur. Is it Reform voters who harass Jewish students on campus? Is it Reform voters who attack Jewish worshippers? Was it Reform who banned Jewish people from attending a football match? Was it Reform voters who shouted anti-Semitic abuse at Jewish people on stage at Glastonbury and at weekly demos? And was it Reform voters who questioned Jewish people's influence in places like the media, medicine? No, that is straight out of the 1930s playbook in Nazi Germany, and it's straight out of the left's playbook today. The real Nazis demonstrate every week in our towns and cities, and the Tories should see that.
Michael, what an articulate voice message that was. So true. They accuse you, don't they, of being what they actually are. It's pretty wild stuff. Lots more on this to come. More of your texts and voice notes. If you are a Reform UK supporter, are you far right? We'll do that next.
some breaking news for you coming out of Liverpool Crown Court.
Loads to talk about, I promise you that. Loads and loads and loads.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the programme. Welcome to the home of common sense.
Yes, it's me again, your genial host, Kevin O'Sullivan.
Top of the morning to you. This is Talk Breakfast. I'm Mark Dolan.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thank you so much for your calls, your messages, your voice notes. It's been a really interesting 4 hours. I've been asking throughout the show, are you an alarm clock Brit? This is a voice note from Adam.
Hi Mark, Adam from Bournemouth. Yeah, I was one of them that had the annoying alarm clock go off this morning at 4:15 to be on the road for 5:30 to do an 11-hour day to earn pittance. By the time Rachel Reeves has got her fingers on everything, you do sometimes sit there and think, what's the point? What is the point sometimes? It really, really is becoming to that point.
It's just awful, isn't it? It really feels like the road to hell that we're on. I can only say the tunnel is at its darkest just before you get to the end of it, and things are going to get better. It's not going to be good for a year or two, but change is coming, folks. Keep the faith. Good morning, Mark. People like Kevin Hollinrake, the Tory party chairman, are exactly the reason that I ended my Conservative Party membership and joined Reform. The Tories will never get the message, and Maggie will be turning in her grave. That's from Brad in Cambridge. Mark says, Paul, a military veteran in Cornwall. On your show, James Cleverly clearly could not and would not answer your questions. But a point to note is this. Cleverly said that Farage must call this out among his party as the party leader. If that's the case, then so should Kemi Badenoch in response to this hateful post. Well, let's get more reaction to that in just a moment. But this is what James Cleverly, the Shadow Secretary of State for Levelling Up Housing and Community, said to me earlier when I asked him about that post by his chairman.
Well, look, that was a decision Kevin made, and it's not necessarily whether I agree with it or otherwise, but I think he was...
Surely you don't agree with
I think he was trying to make... Well, look, it's not what I would have done, but the point is that he was drawing attention to I think, legitimate questions about some of the things that have been said by members of the Reform Party, including Nathan Gill, Reform's former leader in Wales, who's now been incarcerated for corruption charges, taking bribes.
What is the connection between Nathan...
Kremlin.
What's the connection between Nathan Gill and his egregious crimes and Hitler's Germany?
Well, look, as I say, that's not the metaphor that I would have used. But I know that Kevin was trying to draw attention to, I think, some very, very distasteful comments, some very, very inappropriate loyalties within Reform, and more importantly, Nigel Farage's failure to grip these things. I mean, yesterday he was being interviewed in Wales, and when asked, "Are you going to get a grip? Are you going to investigate some of the things that are being said by people within his own party?" He basically said that, "Oh, I'm not the police," implying that somehow it wasn't his problem. He's the leader of a party, and party leaders must take responsibility for the things that are said by members of that party, and he's refusing to do so.
But I don't think, Mr. Cleverly, with the greatest respect in the world, you can conflate this link between the former leader of Reform in Wales and the Kremlin and comparing the general Reform project to that of Adolf Hitler. I mean, I'm surprised that you're in any way defending the post. I mean, surely it's an open shut case of it was offensive, it was wrong, it should have been deleted, and Hollinrake should be receiving his P45.
Well, look, as I say, that's not the metaphor that I would have chosen. But as I say, the point is that the leader of Reform needs to take responsibility for his own political party.
Well, there you go. That was James Cleverly. A big reaction to that. Most of you consider it to have been a very stumbling performance. Someone that never stumbles is Julia Hartley-Brewer, who's live at 10. And Julia, you got in quite early with that Kevin Hollinrake tweet, that poster he shared comparing reform to the Nazis. And you simply said, quickly, does I get it up?
What on earth do you think?